Welcome. I am truly grateful to have you here. Please, make yourself comfortable and take your time. This story was crafted with care, dedication, and deep respect for your attention. I hope it brings you joy, reflection, and perhaps even a touch of nostalgia. Once again, thank you for sharing a moment of your day with me. The year is 1347. You wake up in the middle of a medieval winter, the usual morning clamor utterly absent. You open your eyes to an overwhelming smell of burnt sugar and something metallic, like old blood, clinging to the air. The silence is the first thing that truly strikes you. Heavy, unnatural, pressing down on your ears. You push yourself up from the straw, the cold biting at your exposed skin. A shiver runs through you, but it's not just the chill. A profound unease settles deep in your gut. You call out. A rough, hesitant sound swallowed instantly by the vast quiet. No answer. Only the echo of your own voice, mocking you. You stumble out of the small hut, your breath misting in the frigid air. The village square lies before you, usually bustling with merchants, children, and the low hum of daily life. Now, it's a ghost. Baskets lie overturned, their contents scattered. A few shriveled apples, a broken wooden doll. A half-finished loaf of bread sits on a stall, already stale. A cruel monument to an interrupted moment. Where are the people? Where are the animals? Even the chickens are gone. The pigs, the stray dogs that usually scrounged for scraps. Your boots crunch on the frozen ground as you walk, the sound impossibly loud. You peer into a blacksmith's shop, the forge cold, the hammer abandoned mid-swing beside an unformed piece of iron. The air here carries a faint metallic tang, but no smoke, no heat. You touch the anvil. It's icy, lifeless. You walk past the church, its heavy wooden doors ajar, revealing an empty nave, no flickering candles, no priest, no congregation. The bells hang silent, unmoving against the pale, unforgiving sky. You strain your ears, searching for any sign of life. A cough, a baby's cry, the distant bray of a donkey. Nothing. Just that oppressive, unbroken silence, heavy and thick as fog. The sweet, sickly smell, almost like overripe fruit left to rot, subtly grows stronger as you venture further, mixing with the sharp scent of wood smoke long extinguished. It's not a smell of death, not exactly. It's something more insidious, the smell of absence itself, of life suddenly sucked dry, leaving only faint, lingering traces. You pass a well, its bucket half pulled, water still within, but no one to draw it. A woman's shawl is draped over a bench, a needlework frame, with an unfinished tapestry abandoned beside it. It's as if everyone simply vanished, mid-task, mid-breath. You look up at the bare winter trees, their branches skeletal against the cold sky, and a chilling thought takes root. The world hasn't ended. It's just empty. You are here, and yet you are profoundly alone. The silence isn't peaceful. It's a roar, a deafening testament to an unbearable void. Your own breath feels like an intrusion, a harsh, lonely sound in this suffocating stillness. If this story resonates with you, please like and subscribe. I'm curious. Where in the world are you listening from? And what time is it there? Share in the comments. You step deeper into the silent village. The memory of that overwhelming quiet, still a physical weight in your chest. Now, though, another sensation begins to creep in, chilling you more profoundly than the winter air. You smell it first, a faint acrid tang under the cold, a mixture of unwashed bodies, stale sweat, and something else. Something sickly sweet, like fevered breath caught in old cloth. It's the ghost of illness, clinging to everything. You find yourself in what must have been a home, the door hanging loose on one hinge. Inside, the dim light reveals a small, cramped space. On a rough wooden table, a half-eaten bowl of gruel has solidified, a spoon still resting in it. But your eyes are drawn to a corner, where a pile of blankets lies rumpled on the floor. You approach cautiously, your breath catching in your throat. You don't touch them, but you feel the faint warmth, a lingering imprint of human warmth, now gone. And you see it, a dark, dried stain on the fabric, a harsh reminder of a struggle that played out here. A sudden draft makes the broken window shutters creak, a sound that slices through the stillness, making you flinch. It sounds almost like a ragged cough, an echo of what surely filled these walls not long ago. You instinctively pull your hand up, covering your mouth, even though you know the threat is past, or, at least, invisible. Your skin feels clammy, a prickle of phantom fear crawling over your neck. Every shadow seems to hold a memory, every creak of the floorboards a whisper of agony. You move to another house, similar in its desolation. Here, a small, intricate wooden bird sits on a shelf, carved with loving detail, but underneath it, a small vial, half full of a dark, viscous liquid. A forgotten medicine, perhaps, or a desperate concoction. You pick it up, the glass cold against your fingertips, and you can almost feel the frantic hope, the fear, the ultimate futility of the person who last held it. You turn it over in your hand, a heavy weight that isn't just glass and liquid, but sorrow. The world outside feels colder now, tainted. The silence you found before was one of absence. This silence is different. It's a silence filled with unspoken suffering. It's the quiet left after screams, after labored breathing, after the whispered prayers. You see a small, discarded shoe by the path, a child's shoe, worn at the sole. You imagine the small feet that once ran through these streets, now still. The air itself seems to carry the faint, metallic scent of despair, the heavy weight of a collective exhale. You press your palms together, feeling the chill deep within your bones. It's not just the cold of winter. It's the cold of an absence so complete, yet so marked by what once was. You feel the ghost of sickness, not just in the smells or the abandoned remnants, but in the profound vulnerability that settles over you. You realize that even when the direct threat passes, the memory of its touch, the invisible residue of its passing, can leave a deeper, more lasting wound than any physical mark. You step out from the silent, sick-haunted houses, the winter wind biting harder now. Your own worn shoes are thin, barely offering protection from the frozen earth. Your stomach clenches, not just from the cold, but from the raw hunger that's become a constant companion. As you push open the creaking door of another dwelling, a different kind of scent hits you. The lingering, earthy smell of cured leather, of wool, of a life lived with more comfort than your own. This house feels different, tidier perhaps. On the floor by the hearth where embers should have glowed, you see them, a pair of boots, sturdy, well-made, reaching up to the calf with thick, solid soles. They look warm, they look chooseful. Your eyes fix on them, a strange, undeniable pull. These aren't just boots. They're a piece of someone's life, perfectly preserved, waiting. You walk towards them, your footsteps echoing unnervingly in the small room. You kneel, your fingers brushing the cold, smooth leather. There's a faint, almost imperceptible warmth still held within them, a phantom heat from the feet that once filled them. You hesitate for a moment, a flicker of something close to guilt. These are not yours. But who are they for now? The thought is a bitter, freeing pill. You pull off your own threadbare footwear, feeling the sharp sting of cold on your bare feet. Then, with a deep breath, you slide your foot into the first boot. It's a little loose, a little wide, but the thick wool lining is an immediate, luxurious comfort. You push your heel down, feeling the solid structure, the promise of warmth and protection. It's an almost shocking sensation, this sudden, unearned upgrade. You stand, testing the weight, the unfamiliar heft. Each step you take feels different, more grounded, more deliberate. You walk around the small room, the new soles thudding softly on the wooden floor. You pass a rough-spun cloak hanging on a peg, and without a second thought, you reach for it. The fabric is heavy, scratchy against your skin, but it smells faintly of wood smoke and a clean, masculine scent. You pull it around your shoulders, instantly feeling the difference, the added layer between you and the penetrating cold. You find a small leather pouch on a shelf, its contents jingling softly. Inside, a handful of copper coins, a small, dull knife, and a tiny, perfectly carved wooden bird, a child's toy. You empty the coins into your own pocket, the sound small and pathetic against the vast quiet. The knife feels balanced in your hand, a practical tool now yours. The bird you leave on the shelf, a silent acknowledgement of the life that was, a boundary you instinctively draw. You look around the room, taking in the abandoned life, the sudden, unsettling bounty. The tools of a trade hang on the walls. A farmer's scythe, a small hand axe. Food is scarce, but there are still preserved vegetables in a bin, a sack of grain. You didn't earn this. You didn't work for these boots, this cloak, these tools, this meager store. It was all simply left behind. And in this terrifying new world, that alone is enough. You feel a strange mixture of relief, grim satisfaction, and a deep, gnawing sense of being an accidental inheritor, a survivor feasting on the ruins of others' lives. The boots feel heavy, a constant reminder of the unseen footsteps that preceded yours, the life that was, and the chilling truth that now, it's all yours for the taking. You push open the heavy, ornate wooden door, the sound a low groan that echoes through what must have been the merchant's house. This place feels dramatically different from the others, grander, with remnants of richer fabrics on the chairs and a faint, sweet smell of cinnamon and foreign spices clinging to the air, a stark contrast to the cold, dead silence you've grown accustomed to. Your boots, the ones you inherited, feel solid beneath you as you step inside, the heavy cloak brushing against the doorframe. The silence here is deeper. Somehow, a respectful hush that money once commanded. Your eyes scan the room, past the overturned table and the faded tapestry on the wall, its threads shimmering dully in the sparse light filtering through grimy windows. On a finely carved wooden chest, half hidden beneath a fallen velvet drape, you see it. A small, intricately decorated wooden box, its lid slightly ajar, almost inviting. Your heart gives a strange, unsettling thump, not from fear, but from a different kind of anticipation. It's not about hunger this time, or the biting cold, or finding a simple tool. It's something else entirely, a pull towards a forgotten luxury. You approach, your steps almost silent on the thick, dust-laden rug, the air surprisingly still. You reach out, your fingers hesitating just above the polished wood, feeling an unexpected tension in your shoulders. When you lift the lid fully, the dull gleam of gold catches the sparse light, a muted shimmer in the gloom. Coins. Not just a few, but a small, heavy pile, glinting softly. Beside them, a silver ring with a dark, polished stone, and what looks like a finely wrought silver chain, twisted into an elegant knot. This isn't mere survival. This is unmistakable wealth. Abruptly, undeniably, yours for the taking. You pick up a coin, the metal surprisingly heavy, cool against your fingertips. It feels utterly alien, out of place in your rough, calloused hand. This gold represents trade, power, status, all concepts that feel utterly meaningless in this desolate, depopulated world. Yet, the primal instinct to possess, to hoard, to claim, is a visceral, undeniable jolt through your weary body. You drop the coin back into the box, the chink of metal against metal sounding like a tiny, secret bell in the vast, echoing room. You gaze at the unexpected bounty, a knot forming in your gut, a strange mixture of awe and revulsion. This treasure was paid for with someone's vibrant life, someone's dreams, someone's years of hard-won success and shrewd dealings. Now, it's simply waiting, without an owner, without purpose. You run your finger over the silver ring, tracing the cold, smooth contours of the dark stone. Who wore this? What hopes, what loves, what daily struggles did they pin on it? And now, it's just another piece of the abandoned puzzle of humanity. The decision feels heavy, like the gold itself. You gather the coins, letting them spill into the small, newly acquired pouch at your belt. Their collective weight a strange, unsettling ballast against your hip. The ring and chain you wrap carefully in a piece of discarded, surprisingly soft silk you find nearby, tucking it deep inside your cloak, against your chest. The gold doesn't bring warmth. It doesn't directly bring food or shelter. Not in this moment. It just brings this peculiar, heavy sensation, a mixture of grim fortune and an inescapable sense of moral trespass. You are not a thief. You are a survivor. But what kind of survivor accumulates such riches from death, from the absolute ruin of society? You leave the house, the gold clinking softly with each step you take, a constant, low reminder of its presence, its burden. It feels colder now, a different kind of chill penetrating your bones, the chill of prosperity bought at the ultimate, devastating price. You carry the invisible weight of those vanished lives, those broken ambitions, those forgotten dreams, in your newly acquired wealth. The heavy gold in your pouch is a strange companion as you continue your trek. The path beneath your new, sturdy boots is uneven, leading you out of the merchant's house and further into the quiet sprawl of the village. The earlier silence was startling. Now it's a constant, chilling backdrop, occasionally punctuated by the creak of a loose shutter or the distant moan of the wind. You notice the sun beginning its slow descent, painting the sky in pale, muted oranges and purples that reflect off the frost-covered roofs, turning the village into a macabre, beautiful painting. You push open the door of yet another dwelling. This one, unlike the others, greets you not with a strange smell or an abandoned item, but with an immediate, profound sense of cold. It's an icy grip that seems to emanate from the very stone and wood, biting deeper than the outside air. You step inside, your breath misting thickly before your face. Your eyes immediately find the hearth, the heart of any medieval home. It's choked with cold ash, the stones around it rimmed with soot, but utterly devoid of any warmth, any sign of recent fire. It's a gaping, black maw, a symbol of everything that has ceased to be. You reach out a hand, hovering it over the ash, but there's nothing, only the raw, penetrating cold. You walk deeper into the room, your boots crunching softly on unseen debris. The air is still, heavy, like a breath held too long. On a nearby wooden bench, a small, worn wooden trencher sits, empty and clean. A pitcher lies on its side, dried drops of water clinging to its rim. It speaks of a careful, orderly life, abruptly halted. The contrast between this quiet domesticity and the current desolate reality is a sharp, painful jab. You can almost see the family gathered around this hearth, sharing a meal, laughing, arguing. The phantom sounds are almost more unsettling than the silence itself. You move towards a window, its small panes thick with dust and grime, blurring the fading daylight. You wipe a patch clean with your cloak-covered sleeve, peering out at the skeletal trees and the other silent abandoned homes. The entire village stretches before you, a collection of cold hearths and empty rooms, a graveyard of forgotten warmth. The wind outside picks up, whistling through unseen cracks, creating a low, mournful sound that echoes the hollowness in your own chest. It feels like the world is mourning alongside you, but without tears, only this ceaseless, sighing wind. You turn away from the window, the chill seeping deeper into your bones. The heavy cloak and sturdy boots offer physical protection, but nothing can shield you from this profound, emotional cold. You see a loom in the corner, a half-finished textile still stretched taut, waiting for hands that will never return. The needle lies on the floor, glinting dully. You can almost feel the texture of the unfinished cloth, hear the rhythmic clatter of the shuttle, the focused hum of a woman at work. All gone. The cold hearth is more than just a lack of fire. It's the absence of all life, all comfort, all future. It's a gaping hole where warmth and humanity once resided. You stand there, a solitary figure in a ghost village, the weight of the gold in your pouch feeling less like a treasure and more like an anchor in this sea of loss. The sun dips below the horizon, plunging the world into a deeper, colder gray. You realize that in this empty world, warmth is not just a physical sensation, but a symbol of connection, of shared existence. And without that, the cold is absolute, seeping into everything, even the very soul. The pervasive chill of the abandoned hearth still clings to you as you step back into the fading twilight. The silence outside feels heavier now, a thick blanket pulled over the entire village. You pull your cloak tighter, your hands instinctively going to the pouch at your belt, feeling the familiar, unsettling weight of the gold. But as you walk past what appears to have been a stable, A new, unsettling sound breaks through the silence, making you stop dead in your tracks. A faint scratching. Not the wind. Not a creaking beam. This is a rhythmic, insistent scuttling, coming from deep within the walls of the stable. You lean closer, pressing an ear against the rough wooden planks. The sound grows clearer, punctuated by tiny, agitated squeaks. It's a distinct, undeniable gnawing. Rats. A shiver, entirely different from the cold, traces its way down your spine. The thought of them, unseen but undeniably present, moving through the forgotten spaces, feasting on whatever scraps remain, feels like a violation. These are the true inheritors of this ghost town, thriving in the absence of humanity. You push open the stable door, a grating protest of rusted hinges. The air inside is thick with the scent of old straw, animal droppings, and a sharp, musky odor, the scent of unbridled rodent life. You step further in, your boots soft on the packed earth floor. The darkness here is profound, broken only by slivers of dying light filtering through gaps in the roof. The scuttling grows louder, more frantic, a chorus of tiny claws on wood. You strain your eyes, trying to pierce the gloom. A sudden, quick movement near your feet makes you jump, a flash of gray disappearing under a pile of sacks. Then another, bolder one, scurries across a beam above your head, its tiny eyes glinting in the faint light before it vanishes into a crack. You stand there, surrounded by these unseen, uninvited occupants. They are everywhere, moving with an eerie, confident freedom that human absence has granted them. You hear them in the hay, beneath the mangers, behind the feed bins. It's a constant, unsettling symphony of rustling and squeaking. A stark, visceral reminder that life, in its most primal, unwelcome forms, continues to thrive even in death's shadow. They are busy, relentless, utterly indifferent to the tragedy that is unfolded. You try to move, to disturb them, perhaps to scare them away, but your steps seem to have little effect. They simply pause for a moment, then resume their ceaseless activity, as if you are nothing more than a passing, inconsequential shadow. You find yourself retreating, backing slowly towards the stable door, the small knife in your hand feeling laughably inadequate against this swarming, unseen army. Stepping back out into the open air, you pull the heavy door shut with a clang, trying to block out the sounds, but the image of their darting shadows, their busy, gnawing presence, is etched into your mind. The village isn't entirely silent, you realize. It hums with this unseen, repulsive life. This is the new rhythm of the abandoned world. The wind, the creaking wood, and the relentless, unsettling scuttling of rats. They represent a different kind of horror, not the terror of the plague itself, but the chilling reality of what happens when humanity is abruptly removed, and the natural world, in its most basic, opportunistic form, simply reclaims its territory. It's a humbling, almost revolting thought that these creatures are the true inheritors, the ultimate survivors, thriving in the very ruins of what was once so grand, so human. You leave the stable and its teeming, unseen life behind, the image of their restless hunger still prickling at your senses. You walk further, the village becoming a blur of cold, forgotten homes, until a colossal shadow looms before you. It's the cathedral, its massive stone facade rising against the deepening twilight, a testament to centuries of faith and communal effort. Its sheer size is breathtaking. Even in this state of desolation, its twin towers reaching like skeletal fingers towards the gray sky. You push open one of the immense wooden doors, expecting resistance, but it swings inward with a low, drawn-out groan that reverberates through the cavernous space. The sound seems to stretch, bouncing off unseen arches and pillars, slowly fading until the silence rushes back in, heavier, deeper than before. It's a silence not of absence, but of profound, sacred emptiness. The air inside is cold, damp, smelling of ancient stone, stale incense, and something indefinably old, like forgotten prayers. You step onto the flagstone floor, your heavy boots thudding loudly in the vast nave. You instantly feel small, insignificant, swallowed by the sheer scale of the place. Columns taller than any tree rise to meet vaulted ceilings, lost in shadows. Stained glass windows, once ablaze with divine light, now filter the dying day into weak, muted patches of purple and indigo on the dusty floor. There are no flickering candles, no murmur of prayer, no echo of a choir. Only the vast, cold expanse stretching before you like an endless, silent testament to a vanished world. You walk slowly down the central aisle, your eyes drawn upwards, past the empty pews, towards the distant altar. Every step you take feels like an intrusion, a violation of a space meant for thousands, now hosting only you and the echoes of ghosts. The gold in your pouch feels suddenly cheap, vulgar, an almost offensive weight in this house of God. You reach the steps leading to the altar, a place usually vibrant with the light of ceremony, the presence of the divine. Now it's just a cold stone stage, waiting for an audience that will never return. An almost irresistible urge sweeps over you. You fall to your knees on the cold, hard stone, the sudden impact a sharp jolt through your body. Your hands instinctively press together, calloused palms against each other, as if seeking warmth, seeking connection. You bow your head, closing your eyes, trying to find words, a prayer, a plea. But there's nothing. Your throat is tight, your mind a blank. The silence isn't just around you. It feels as if it has seeped into you, filling the space where hope and faith once resided. You listen, straining for any sign, any whisper, any reassurance from the heavens. But there is only the vast, crushing stillness. You open your eyes, looking at the silent, empty cross on the altar, its figure stark and unmoving in the gloom. The sense of God's silence, His absence, is palpable, overwhelming. It's not just that the people are gone, it's that the very presence they believed in seems to have abandoned this sacred space too. You rise slowly, your knees aching from the cold stone, a profound sense of spiritual emptiness settling into your very bones. The grand architecture, the beautiful, fading light, the very air itself now feels like a monument not just to humanity, but to a silent, unresponsive divinity. You leave the cathedral, the enormous door closing behind you with another long, mournful sigh, carrying with you not the hope of solace, but the cold, heavy realization that in this new world, even God seems to have turned His face away. The enormous doors of the cathedral groan shut behind you, sealing away the profound, echoing silence of a godless house. The cold outside still bites, but now it feels different, sharper, infused with a bitter realization that settles deep in your chest. Your knees still ache from the unforgiving stone, But it's not just physical pain. It's the searing ache of unanswered prayers, of a vast, empty void where solace should have been. You walk, your heavy boots crunching on the frozen ground, each step a deliberate act against the crushing weight of everything you've just felt. A thought, cold and unsettling, begins to coil in your mind, a serpent whispering promises. What good was devotion? What good was faith? The plague didn't spare the pious. It didn't distinguish between sinner and saint. The empty pews, the silent altar, they were not monuments to divine justice, but to profound, agonizing indifference. You clench your jaw, a defiant tremor running through your body. The chill wind whips around you, and you no longer feel a need to huddle against it for comfort. Instead, you feel a strange, nascent rage, a rebellious spark igniting in the hollow where your faith once resided. You pass a small roadside shrine, usually adorned with offerings, perhaps a flickering candle. Now, it's barren, neglected, the crude wooden crucifix leaning precariously, almost mockingly. You stop, your gaze fixed on the figure. Instead of reverence, a surge of something sharp and ugly rises within you. Was this the path? To meekly accept, to beg for mercy that never came, to be grateful for a life that was stripped bare, leaving only desolation? Your hand instinctively reaches for the heavy gold in your pouch, the weight a stark counterpoint to the hollow promise of salvation. This gold, taken from the dead, feels more real, more tangible, more powerful than any heavenly grace. You kick at a loose stone, sending it skittering across the frozen ground. The sound is harsh, rebellious. The old ways, the old beliefs, they feel like a tattered cloak, offering no warmth in this new brutal winter. A different kind of power stirs within you, a dangerous, intoxicating freedom. If God has abandoned this world, then what stops you from taking what you need, from forging your own rules in this godless landscape? The guilt you felt earlier, for inheriting the boots, for taking the gold, begins to recede, replaced by a cold, practical resolve. Survival is not a divine gift. It is a brutal individual struggle. You look up at the starless sky, the endless, inky blackness mirroring the emptiness within you. The wind seems to hum a new tune now, not a mournful dirge, but a raw, untamed whisper, urging you to cast off the chains of expectation, of morality, of the sacred. This isn't the devil speaking with a booming voice from a pulpit. It's a subtle, insidious shift within your own mind. A quiet, undeniable sermon of self-preservation and defiant will. You realize that the real horror isn't just the dead. It's what you become when everything you believed in crumbles, leaving you alone to forge your own darker path in a world that has forgotten mercy. The weight of the gold now feels less like guilt, and more like a tool, a new kind of power, a promise in a world where all other promises have been broken. The cold, silent judgment of the cathedral still prickles at your memory, and the harsh whispers of self-preservation now echo louder than any prayer. You've left the immediate village behind, following a winding, overgrown track that leads further into the desolate countryside. The winter air feels lighter here, less heavy with the ghosts of humanity. Now, a different scent begins to reach you, subtle at first, then growing stronger. The sharp, clean, resinous tang of pine. It's a natural, wild smell, a stark contrast to the decay you've known. Ahead, through a stand of skeletal trees, you glimpse it. Not a grand cathedral, but a smaller, older stone church. Its roof partially caved in, a gaping hole open to the sky. This isn't a place of human preservation anymore. It's being reclaimed. You push through a tangle of thorny bushes and brittle, dead bracken, your sturdy boots crunching over fallen leaves. As you approach the broken archway where the main doors once stood, the scent of pine needles intensifies, mingling with the earthy smell of damp moss and cold stone. It's almost invigorating, a primal aroma. You step inside, and your breath catches. The air here is surprisingly fresh, carried in by the ceaseless winter breeze. But what truly captures your attention is the floor. Patches of it are covered in a thick, vibrant carpet of green moss, creeping vines, and surprisingly a scattering of pine needles that have blown in through the roof and window gaps. It's as if the forest itself has begun to seep into the sacred space, reclaiming it, transforming it. Where pews once stood, broken fragments of stone and wood are now adorned with delicate tendrils of ivy, clinging to their surface like a verdant shroud. You walk further in, the crunch of pine needles under your boots, a strangely comforting sound, a natural rhythm replacing the eerie silence. You run your hand over a cold, moss-covered stone column. The texture is soft, damp, alive beneath your fingers. Light streams in through the collapsed roof, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, but also casting a soft, ethereal glow on the encroaching green. It feels less like ruin and more like a quiet, persistent resurgence. The natural world is moving in, patient and relentless, turning the human edifice into a part of itself. You reach the remnants of the altar, not grand or ornate like the cathedrals, but humble. Here, too, moss has begun its slow, inexorable march, softening the edges of the stone, blurring the lines of what was once a sacred boundary. A small sapling, barely a twig with a few tentative green leaves, pushes its way up through a crack in the floor nearby, reaching for the light. Its resilience is a quiet, powerful statement. The overwhelming feeling isn't one of desolation, but of nature's quiet strength. The church isn't dead. It's being reborn, absorbed into something ancient and enduring. The scent of pine needles fills your lungs with each breath, clean and vital. It's a stark contrast to the human-made decay, the sick smells, the cold hearths. Here, life is finding a way, unburdened by human suffering or human faith. You stand there for a long moment, simply breathing, feeling the cool, pine-scented air fill your lungs. The world, you realize, is not truly empty. It's simply returning to a wilder, more elemental state, and you are merely a witness to its patient, green tide. This natural reclamation feels more powerful, more real, than any sermon could ever be. The clean, wild scent of pine needles from the ruined church still lingers in your senses, a potent reminder of nature's relentless reclaiming. But as dusk deepens, painting the world in shades of cold gray and indigo, a new sound slices through the quiet, sending a primitive jolt through you. It's a distant, mournful wail, a long, drawn-out cry that seems to rise from the very depths of the barren forest. A wolf. Your heart gives a sudden, hard thump against your ribs. You stop, straining your ears, the sound fading into the chilling stillness. You scan the edge of the forest, the bare branches of the trees merging into an indistinguishable mass in the fading light. Then, closer this time, another howl, followed by a chorus of sharper, more urgent barks and snarls. Not just one, a pack. And they sound close. Too close. The air around you seems to grow colder, charged with a primal energy. The silence of the abandoned village, once so heavy with human absence, now feels like an open invitation, a void waiting to be filled by something wilder, more ancient. You realize the rats were only the beginning. The predators are coming, drawn by the scent of decay, by the sudden, unprecedented bounty of empty lands and unguarded dwellings. You quicken your pace, your sturdy boots kicking up frozen earth. The comfortable weight of the gold in your pouch suddenly feels less like security and more like a hindrance. You reach the outer edge of the village, where the first few huts stand, their doors hanging askew, their windows like empty eyes. And there, silhouetted against the last vestiges of twilight, you see them, 3 shapes, low to the ground, moving with a fluid predatory grace. Wolves. They are at the very gates, so to speak, of what was once a human settlement, bold and unafraid. Their eyes, you imagine, are glinting in the dark. They trot through the main street, their gaunt forms visible even in the dim light, sniffing at the overturned baskets, at the abandoned stalls, their heads occasionally lifting to taste the air. One stops, lifts its head, and lets out a piercing, triumphant howl that echoes off the silent buildings, a chilling declaration of dominance. It's a sound that speaks of hunger, of untamed wilderness, of a world reset. You instinctively press yourself against the cold stone wall of a nearby house, pulling your cloak around you, trying to melt into the shadows. Your breath hitches in your throat. You feel the raw, visceral fear of being prey, a feeling long forgotten in the regulated world of human society. These aren't wild animals confined to the deep woods. These are bold, starving beasts, now claiming the very streets and homes that humans once ruled. The sound of their paws on the frozen ground, the soft growls, the occasional chuff as they communicate, it all paints a vivid, terrifying picture of a world turned upside down. Humanity built walls, lit fires, forged tools to keep these dangers at bay. Now the walls are crumbling, the fires are cold, and the humans are gone. The wilderness, in its most brutal and beautiful form, is surging back, reclaiming its territory, its rightful place. You watch them, a knot of fear and awe tightening in your chest. They are magnificent, terrifying, and utterly without mercy. The horror isn't just that the plague took everyone. It's what swiftly followed, the rapid, brutal regression to a world where human dominion is shattered, and the ancient, untamed forces of nature once again reign supreme. The hole at the gates is more than just a sound. It's a chilling pronouncement that you are no longer at the top of the food chain. You are simply another creature, navigating a world that has forgotten humanity and in its wild, fierce heart probably never really cared. The memory of the wolves, their predatory grace claiming the abandoned streets, still makes your skin prickle as you move through the fading light. Your newly acquired gold feels heavy, a strange comfort in a world gone wild. But then, as you crest a small rise, a new sight pulls you up short. A thin plume of smoke, faint but unmistakable, curling against the darkening sky. Not from a forgotten hearth, but purposeful, alive. Another human. The thought sends a jolt through you, a mixture of apprehension and a desperate, almost forgotten hope. You approach cautiously, the crunch of your boots on frozen ground suddenly loud to your own ears. The smoke leads you to a small, isolated farmstead, tucked away from the main village. It's dilapidated, but clearly not abandoned. A small, lean figure is bent over a pile of chopped wood, an axe rising and falling with steady, rhythmic thuds. The smell of fresh-cut timber and damp earth fills the air, mingled with the faint, warm scent of a burning fire. You stop at a respectful distance, the glint of your gold in the pouch, the sturdy boots, the cloak, all markers of a status that might have meant something in the old world. The figure straightens, slowly, as if sensing your presence. He is a man, older, with a face weathered like ancient oak, and hands thick with calluses. His eyes, the color of wet stone, meet yours across the chill air. There's no surprise in them, no fear, just a deep, weary assessment. He doesn't flinch, doesn't offer a bow, doesn't lower his gaze. He simply stands, holding the axe loosely in one hand, the other resting on a hip, a silent, unwavering presence. You nod, a gesture of unspoken authority, a habit from a world where social hierarchy was absolute. You point vaguely towards the meager hut, then to your throat, a silent request for water, perhaps a share of his fire. Your hand, almost unconsciously, goes to the pouch at your belt, suggesting a trade, a transaction. The old rules, the expectation that a peasant would defer, would offer what little he had to someone of even slightly higher standing, they surge within you. The man's eyes flick to your hand, then back to your face. He doesn't speak, he doesn't move from his spot by the woodpile. His posture is rigid, unyielding. He simply shakes his head, a slow, deliberate movement, his gaze never leaving yours. It's not an aggressive denial, not a defiant shout. It's a quiet, absolute refusal, a clear, unmistakable no, etched into his very being. He watches you, his expression unchanging, a wall of silent, immovable resolve. A cold shock runs through you, sharper than any winter wind. It's not just the denial of water or warmth, but the utter absence of deference. The old world, where a peasant would never dare to refuse, is truly gone. The weight of your gold feels meaningless, powerless. Your fine boots, your heavy cloak, they mean nothing to this man, this survivor who has clearly weathered the storm on his own terms. He owes you nothing, he fears you not. You stand there, a strange tension coiling between you both. A silent battle of wills. The man's gaze remains steady, patiently waiting for you to understand. He is not threatening you. He is simply stating a new truth. In this raw, broken world, the hierarchy has dissolved, leaving only stark, individual survival. You are no longer above him. You are just another person, uninvited, unwelcome, asking for something he has earned with his own bitter toil. The realization is a bitter taste in your mouth, a humbling, horrifying acknowledgement that the world has been remade, and the power you once held, or thought you held, is utterly, completely meaningless. His calloused hand, resting on the axe, is a symbol not of subservience, but of his own hard-won, fierce independence. The peasant's unwavering gaze, his silent refusal, still burns in your memory as you turn away from his farm, the cold truth of his independence. a stark contrast to your own decaying assumptions. The night has deepened now, a brutal, unforgiving blackness that swallows the landscape. Your stomach growls, a hollow ache, and a chilling realization sinks in. The gold is useless if no one will trade with you, if the old societal rules no longer hold sway. You are just as vulnerable, just as hungry as anyone else. You keep moving, the silence pressing in, until a different sound pierces the night. A low, guttural moan, followed by a sharp, cracking snap. It's not the wind, nor an animal. It's human. And it carries a chilling echo of pain. A morbid curiosity, or perhaps a desperate need to understand this new broken world, pulls you towards it. The sounds draw you to the edge of a different, larger village, one you haven't explored yet. As you draw closer, the faint flicker of torches becomes visible, dancing against the dark silhouettes of buildings. And with the torches, the sounds intensify. Harsh shouts, a terrified whimper, and then that sickening, repetitive crack. You creep forward, moving through the deep shadows between abandoned homes, until you can peer around a corner into what was once the village square. The scene freezes you. In the dim, smoky light of several crude torches, a handful of men stand, armed with makeshift weapons, stout clubs, a sharpened scythe, and at their center, two figures. One, a tall man, clad in worn but clearly superior clothing, holding a long leather whip. The other, a young man, perhaps a peasant, stripped to the waist, tied to a wooden post. The tall man raises the whip, his face contorted in a sneer, and brings it down with a vicious crack across the peasant's bare back. The peasant cries out, a raw, animal sound of pain and humiliation. The air is thick with the metallic tang of fresh blood, mixed with the acrid smell of fear and wood smoke. Your stomach lurches, but you can't look away. The whip comes down again and again, each strike raising a crimson welt on the young man's skin. The peasant's body convulses with each blow, but he bites back any further screams, only stifled grunts escaping his lips. The armed men around the torturer watch with grim, impassive faces, holding their weapons loosely. There is no joy in their eyes, only a weary, hard-won authority. You understand instantly. This is the brutal, immediate response to the taste of freedom, to the peasant who dared to say, no. The plague may have wiped out countless lives, but it didn't wipe out human cruelty or the instinct to dominate. The old lords or their proxies are reasserting control, desperately trying to reconstruct the hierarchy, to crush any burgeoning sense of independence before it takes root. This is not about justice. It's about making an example, sending a stark, bloody message. Even in the wake of apocalypse, some will still demand obedience, will still wield the whip. The whip falls one last time, with a final, sickening crack. The peasant sags against the post, his breathing ragged. The tall man lowers his arm, his chest heaving slightly, his eyes sweeping over his men, then across the shadows, almost as if he senses your presence. You shrink further into the darkness, your heart hammering against your ribs, not just with fear, but with a cold, hollow dread. This is the real horror after the plague, not just the absence of life, but the savage, desperate attempts of the survivors to control what little remains, to restore a brutal order, reminding everyone that even when God is silent, man's cruelty still echoes. The brief, intoxicating taste of freedom you felt earlier dissolves, replaced by the bitter, stinging memory of the Lord's whip. The chilling crack of the Lord's whip still reverberates in your ears, a stark reminder of humanity's enduring cruelty even as its numbers dwindle. You leave that reasserted brutality behind, pushing deeper into the cold, fractured landscape. The night is a blur of desperate walking, the gold in your pouch now feeling like a burden rather than a blessing. Then, as dawn begins to paint the eastern sky in pale, hopeful hues, a new, unsettling sound reaches you from the distance. It's a rhythmic, almost hypnotic sound. Not shouting, not a struggle. It's a series of sharp, dull thuds, followed by wet, slapping noises. It carries on the crisp morning air, steady and relentless. You approach cautiously, following the sounds to another village, larger than the last. This one isn't abandoned. There are people here. A gathering. As you near the town square, the full horror of the sound becomes clear. It's the sound of flesh being struck. You peer around the corner of a ruined building, and the scene before you is utterly surreal. In the center of the square, a procession of men and women, perhaps 20 or 30 strong, moves slowly in a circle. They are gaunt, their eyes hollow, clad in rough sackcloth. Each one holds a whip, a crude instrument fashioned from rope, often studded with bits of metal or glass. And with each step, each slow rotation, they bring the whips down, not on others, but on their own backs. The wet, slapping sound is sickeningly constant, punctuated by the soft, sharp sting of the lash. The air is thick with the coppery smell of blood, mixing with the damp earth and the chill of the morning. You watch, transfixed and horrified, as their bodies jerk with each impact. Their faces are contorted, not in screams of agony, but in a strange, ecstatic agony. Some murmur prayers low and guttural, almost chants. Others just weep silently, tears streaking through the grime on their cheeks, their lips moving in unspoken supplication. You see a woman, her back already crisscrossed with angry red welts, her head thrown back, a single tear tracing a path through the dust. A man beside her, his face a mask of desperate fervor, brings his lash down with sickening force, a raw groan escaping his lips. This isn't imposed torture. This is self-inflicted penance, born of a terror so profound it drives them to such extremes. They believe they are cleansing their sins, appeasing a wrathful God, hoping to stave off another wave of death, another plague, the rhythmic thudding of the whips against flesh, the low moans, the desperate, silent prayers. It all combines into a grotesque symphony of suffering. You feel a deep, unsettling empathy for their pain, even as your mind recoils from the spectacle. This is what the terror of the plague has wrought. Not just death, not just empty villages, but a twisting of the human spirit, a descent into self-flagellation in a desperate attempt to find meaning, to find absolution. You stand there, a solitary observer, the gold in your pouch feeling utterly irrelevant in the face of such raw, collective agony. The taste of blood seems to fill your mouth, though it's not your own. The sting of the lash isn't physical, but it sears itself into your consciousness, a profound realization that the suffering isn't over. It has simply changed form, burrowing deep into the souls of the survivors, compelling them to brutalize themselves in a world where God's silence is the loudest sound of all. This is the real horror, you understand. The insidious way terror corrupts the mind, making people inflict on themselves the very pain they so desperately seek to escape. The raw, wet sound of the self-inflicted lash still reverberates in the square, a haunting rhythm against the stark morning. You remain hidden, a silent witness to this desperate ritual, the metallic tang of blood, a constant presence in the air. The chill in your bones isn't just from the winter wind. It's the cold dread of watching humanity's unraveling, a slow, agonizing descent into madness born of terror. As the procession continues its slow, tormented circle, you begin to notice something even more disturbing than the pain itself. The faces of the flagellants, once contorted in agony, start to change. A strange light enters their eyes, a kind of feverish glow. Their breathing, once ragged, takes on a shallow, almost panting rhythm. With each lash, each grunt of pain, a peculiar transformation occurs. It's an ecstasy of suffering. You watch a young woman, no older than yourself, her back a map of fresh wounds. Her whip falls, a muffled thud against her flesh, but instead of crying out, her eyes roll back slightly, a faint, trembling smile appearing on her blood-streaked lips. It's a smile of release, of a perverse kind of joy. She murmurs something, barely audible, a fractured syllable that sounds like, "Forgive." She finds solace, not in the absence of pain, but in its very presence, believing it to be a conduit to a distant, silent God. A man nearby, his shoulders hunched with years of labor, brings his whip down with a renewed, almost frantic energy. His movements are no longer slow and deliberate. They are quick, desperate, as if he's racing against some unseen clock. He lets out a low, guttural cry, a sound that is both anguish and a strange exultation. His eyes, too, have that feverish gleam, a terrifying blend of pain and profound, almost hallucinatory hope. They are not merely enduring pain, they are asterisks seeking it, embracing it, believing it to be their only path to salvation in a world that has otherwise abandoned them. The air around them seems to vibrate with this collective, masochistic fervor. The blood, the sweat, the grunts of exertion. It creates an almost tangible atmosphere of desperation and twisted faith. You feel a pull, a strange, sickening magnetism, to understand this profound need for penance, to comprehend how terror can drive people to such extremes. Their self-inflicted wounds are not just physical. They are outward manifestations of an internal, spiritual wound, a desperate plea to a heaven that seems deaf. You touch your own back, a phantom ache tracing your spine, imagining the sting of the lash, the sharp bite of metal. Would you, too, find such a horrifying comfort in that agony if the world had utterly broken your spirit? Would you, in a desperate search for meaning, for a sign of God's hand, choose to suffer this way? The thought is chilling, a stark mirror reflecting the fragility of sanity in a traumatized world. You back away slowly, careful not to disturb their grim ritual. The rhythmic thudding of the whips, the low moans, the desperate rapturous faces, it all burns itself into your memory. This isn't just a physical ordeal. It's a profound, spiritual one. The real horror of the plague, you realize, isn't just the millions it killed. It's the way it stripped away all certainties, leaving the survivors to invent new, terrifying ways to cope, to find meaning in an incomprehensible catastrophe. They are seeking forgiveness for a sin they never committed, in a world that has long forgotten how to forgive. The ecstasy of their pain is a terrifying testament to a traumatized world, a world where suffering has become the only language left to speak to a silent God. The echoes of the flagellants, self-inflicted pain fade behind you, leaving a deep imprint of disquiet in your mind. The sun, now higher, casts long, pale shadows across the winter landscape, but it offers little warmth, either to your skin or your spirit. You keep moving, driven by a nameless urge, a desperate search for something that makes sense in this fractured world. The gold in your pouch is a forgotten weight, overshadowed by the raw, exposed nerves of a world gone mad. As you approach a new, bustling market town, bustling by the new, grim standards of a depopulated continent, a different kind of tension hangs in the air. It's not the eerie silence of abandoned places, nor the ritualistic agony of the flagellants. This is a low hum of anxiety, a palpable fear that seems to seep from every crack in the stone, every hushed conversation. The smell here is a mixture of damp wool, unwashed bodies, stale ale, and something else, something sharp and acidic like suspicion. You navigate the narrow, crowded streets, your cloak pulled close. People shuffle past you, their eyes downcast, their shoulders hunched. There are fewer children, fewer old people. The faces you see are hard, watchful, quick to avert their gaze. A group of men stands huddled by a tavern door, their voices low, murmuring. As you pass, you catch fragmented words, sharp and venomous. Poison the wells. God's judgment on asterisk them. Not one of us. The whispers are like daggers, cutting through the thin veil of normalcy. You feel a prickle on the back of your neck. The eyes of a woman selling dried fish, hollow and haunted, flick towards you as you pass. She doesn't stare openly, but her gaze lingers for a fraction too long, filled with an unreadable mix of fear and something akin to accusation. Then she quickly looks away, burying her face in her shawl. You adjust your cloak, suddenly aware of your unfamiliarity, the boots, the gold. You are an outsider. In this traumatized world, an outsider is a dangerous thing to be. The whispers continue, like a rising tide. You hear snippets of strangers, different look, brought the sickness. The air feels thick with it, charged with an invisible current of suspicion. People cast furtive glances at each other, a collective paranoia slowly tightening its grip. The plague was a faceless enemy, an invisible killer. But humanity, desperate for answers, for control, always seeks to give a face to its terror. A group of villagers, their faces grim, walks past you, their eyes scanning the faces of everyone they meet with chilling intensity. You duck your head, trying to appear inconspicuous, but you feel their gaze brush against you, cold and appraising. Your heart begins to thump faster, a frantic bird trapped in your chest. The thought is sudden, terrifyingly clear. They're looking for someone to blame. The horror isn't the plague itself, but the insidious way it has twisted the minds of the survivors, turning them against each other. The fear isn't of sickness anymore, but of the collective, unreasoning wrath of those who remain. You are a stranger, an unknown quantity, easily singled out. Your difference, once merely a fact, now feels like a glaring target. The whispers are no longer just background noise. They are the soundtrack of an impending danger, an unseen threat far more immediate than any wolf or empty hearth. You feel the chilling certainty that in this world, survival means constantly looking over your shoulder, knowing that at any moment, a whispered word, a pointing finger, could condemn you, not for what you've done, but for what you are. A convenient scapegoat in a world drowning in unexplainable loss. The chilling whispers of accusation still prickle at your skin as you navigate the tense market town. The suspicion in people's eyes, the furtive glances, the venomous fragments of conversation, it all paints a grim picture of a society tearing itself apart from within. You pull your cloak tighter, trying to blend into the shadows, but the feeling of being an outsider, a potential target, is a heavy, suffocating weight. Suddenly, the low hum of anxiety is shattered. A piercing shriek rips through the air, sharp and desperate. It's a woman's voice, full of terror. Your head snaps up, and you see it. A plume of black smoke, thick and oily, beginning to coil upwards from the far end of the market square. And with it, a new smell, raw and acrid, hits you. The unmistakable stench of burning wood and thatch, mingling with the sickening odor of something else. Something burning that is not merely timber. Panic erupts. Shouts turn to screams as people scatter, pushing and shoving in a frantic rush away from the smoke. You are caught in the tide, jostled by frantic bodies, the gold in your pouch banging against your hip with each rough collision. Above the din, you hear guttural roars, angry shouts of, "Witch! Sorcerer! Burn them out!" The words are laced with a savage, righteous fury, a terrifying release of pent-up fear and grief. You fight against the current of panicked bodies, pushing towards the source of the smoke, a morbid compulsion drawing you in. As you break free of the crowd, the scene unfolds before you. A small cluster of huts is engulfed in roaring flames, the inferno eating through the dry wood and thatch with terrifying speed. Tongues of orange fire lick greedily at the sky, casting grotesque, dancing shadows across the panicked faces of the onlookers. And then you see the figures, not just the burning homes, but what they are burning. Two bodies, or what's left of them, tied to crude stakes, silhouetted against the raging inferno. One is small, clearly a child. The other, larger, seems to twist in a final, agonizing spasm. The air is thick with the smell of charring flesh, a nauseating, unforgettable stench that sears itself into your nostrils, a truly unspeakable horror. This is the price of blame. This is the ultimate cost of a society terrified beyond reason. The villagers stand watching, their faces lit by the hellish glow. Some are weeping, their tears streaming silently, but others are shouting, their voices hoarse with a feverish exultation, throwing stones and curses into the flames. They are not merely witnessing, they are participating, finding a perverse solace in this act of collective, murderous rage. They are cleansing themselves, they believe, of the evil that brought the plague, driving out the culprits, whatever form they take. You back away slowly, the heat of the fire searing your face, the screams of the dead still echoing in the air. The gold in your pouch feels like ash now, utterly worthless. The sturdy boots, the warm cloak, the knife, they offer no protection from this kind of horror, this human-made hell. The real horror after the plague, you realize with a sickening clarity, is not the illness itself or the empty world it left behind. It's what happens when the survivors, stripped of reason and hope, turn on each other, seeking an enemy where there is none, burning innocence in a desperate, futile attempt to purify a world that is already irrevocably stained. The smell of burning homes and burning flesh will forever cling to your memory, a terrifying testament to humanity's capacity for cruelty when faced with unimaginable loss. The acrid stench of burning homes and flesh still assaults your senses, the screams of the innocent echoing in the hollow chambers of your mind. You fled that scene of collective madness, leaving the terrified, vengeful villagers behind, the weight of their brutality a heavier burden than any gold. Now the bitter winter air stings your cheeks as you trudge along a desolate road, your spirit as raw and exposed as the barren landscape. A faint whimpering sound, thin and reedy, pulls you from your grim thoughts. It's barely audible above the whisper of the wind, but it's undeniably human. You stop, straining your ears, and follow the sound, cautiously, towards a cluster of ruined hovels at the edge of a frozen field. The smell here is of damp earth, stagnant water, and a faint, sweet sickliness that makes your stomach clench. You find it in the shadow of a crumbling wall, a small figure, huddled amongst discarded rags and straw. It's a child. A boy, no older than 5 or 6, his knees drawn up to his chest, his face streaked with dirt and snot. His whimpering is soft, intermittent, a sound of profound, exhausted misery. His eyes, when he slowly lifts his head and meets your gaze, are enormous, sunken, and utterly devoid of fear. There's only a vast, empty hunger in them, a bottomless well of need. He doesn't move, doesn't cry out more loudly, doesn't even flinch at your presence. He simply watches you, a silent, desperate question in those wide, haunted eyes. His hands, small and thin, are clasped together, almost convulsively, as if trying to squeeze warmth from nothing. You notice the distended curve of his belly beneath his torn tunic, a stark testament to prolonged starvation. His lips are cracked, his skin unnaturally pale, almost translucent. You instinctively reach into your pouch, pulling out a small, dried piece of bread you had been saving. It's hard, stale, but it's food. You hold it out to him. His gaze doesn't leave your face, but his eyes flicker to the bread, a tiny spark of raw, animalistic craving momentarily eclipsing the emptiness. Slowly, hesitantly, he extends a trembling hand, his fingers brushing yours as he takes it. His touch is shockingly cold, fragile. He doesn't thank you. He doesn't devour it immediately, as you might expect. Instead, he holds the bread, staring at it with an almost religious reverence, his small thumb tracing its rough surface. He brings it to his nose, inhaling deeply before taking a tiny, almost imperceptible bite, chewing slowly, meticulously, as if savoring every microscopic crumb. It's a measured, desperate act of survival, learned in a world that offers no mercy. You scan the desolate surroundings. No parents, no family, no other children. Just the wind whistling through the cracks in the wall, and this small, isolated sentinel of humanity. He is a testament to the plague's most agonizing legacy, the countless orphans, left to wander a world that has no place, no care, no future for them. His solitude is absolute, his hunger a constant gnawing companion. You watch him eat, the raw truth of his vulnerability, his absolute dependence on what little kindness might stumble his way, pressing down on you. The real horror after the plague, you realize, isn't just the millions of dead, or the madness of the survivors. It's this: the innocent children, robbed of childhood, robbed of love, left to starve and whimper in a world without parents, without protection, without hope. His hunger is not just for bread. It is for the warmth of a hand, the comfort of a voice, the security of a home that will never again exist. And in his silent, watchful gaze, you see a profound, heartbreaking echo of humanity's ultimate defeat. The image of that starving child, slowly, meticulously eating a piece of stale bread, is seared into your mind. His hollow eyes, his fragile, cold touch, they speak of a profound, unbearable loneliness. You watch him finish the last crumb, then turn his gaze back to you, still silent, still watchful, a tiny sentinel in a world too big and too cruel for him. The thought of leaving him alone in this desolation is a heavy stone in your gut. But as you consider what to do, a rustle from a nearby thicket of bare bushes catches your ear. Not the wind, not an animal, it's too deliberate. The small boy's eyes, wide and suddenly alert, flick to the same spot, a flicker of something new in their depths, not fear, but a desperate, calculating wariness. He quickly, subtly shrinks further into the shadows of the crumbling wall, almost vanishing into the rags. Then they emerge. Not one, but 3 more figures, small and quick, darting from the cover of the bushes. Children, older than the first boy, perhaps 7 or 8, gaunt and wild-eyed, clad in mismatched scraps of cloth. Their movements are fluid, almost feral, a practiced stealth that speaks of constant vigilance. The smell of unwashed bodies and damp earth clings to them, a scent of the fringes, of lives lived outside the protection of walls. They don't approach you directly. Instead, they fan out, forming a loose semicircle, their gazes fixed on you, sharp and assessing. They carry no weapons, but their stance is defensive, ready to bolt or defend. Their eyes, like the first boy's, are full of that same deep hunger, but also a fierce, untamed intelligence. They are a pack, a small, desperate wolf pack of children, hardened by a world that has stripped away every ounce of their innocence. The first boy, the one you gave the bread to, shifts slightly. A tiny movement of acknowledgement towards them. They respond with subtle nods, a silent language of understanding passing between them. He has silently communicated your presence, your potential as a threat or a resource. The cold weight of your gold, the sturdy boots, the cloak. It all feels like a target now, an invitation for desperate hands. You hold still, not wanting to provoke them, to trigger a fight you don't want. The air crackles with unspoken tension. You see the faint bruises on one girl's cheek, the raw, chapped hands of another. They are survivors, forged in the crucible of abandonment, forced to rely on instinct and each other. They have learned to hunt, to steal, to hide. They have learned that kindness is rare and suspicion is safer. The quiet, almost imperceptible way they move, the shared glances, the desperate alertness. It's a chilling mimicry of the wolves you saw earlier. Humanity, pushed to its breaking point, has regressed to something primal, even in its youngest members. These children are not waiting for salvation. They are actively carving out their own survival, one hard, dangerous day at a time, on the very edges of society, far from any hearth or adult protection. You slowly reach into your pouch again, pulling out another piece of dried meat, holding it out, carefully, deliberately, avoiding any sudden movements. Their eyes, A collective pair of hungry, watchful sensors. Follow your hand. This isn't charity for them. It's a transaction, a momentary truce. The real horror after the plague, you realize, isn't just the death toll, or the madness, or the cruelty of adults. It's seeing the next generation, humanity's future, transformed into these wild, desperate creatures, forced to fight for scraps, to live like animals, stripped of the very essence of childhood. Their silent collective presence is a stark, heartbreaking testament to a broken world. A world where the wolf pack now wears human faces. The memory of the children, their hungry, watchful eyes, their primal instinct for survival, is a constant, unsettling companion as you move on. The gold in your pouch now feels insignificant, a relic of a world that no longer exists. You've left the immediate threat of the child pack behind, venturing further into the desolate, fragmented landscape. The raw, biting cold remains, a constant physical challenge, but now a new, pervasive theme begins to emerge, etched into the very fabric of the world around you. You enter a town, larger than the others, one that still shows some signs of life, albeit a muted, traumatized one. But what strikes you first isn't the people, or the quiet desperation. It's the walls. Every surface seems to be adorned with a macabre new art. On the side of a tavern, crudely drawn in chalk, you see a skeletal figure, its hollow eyes staring out, its bony fingers reaching. On a stone wall beside the abandoned marketplace, a more elaborate depiction, painted with ash and mud, shows a line of dancing skeletons mocking the living. The pervasive smell here is of damp stone and stale fear, but also a faint, chalky dust from the drawings, and the earthy tang of the crude paints used. You walk past a butcher's shop, its wooden shutters hanging loose. On the door, someone has carved a grinning skull, its empty sockets seeming to follow you. Everywhere you look, the image is repeated. Skeletons dancing, skeletons leading, skeletons playing pipes, skeletons mocking, skeletons claiming their due. These aren't just isolated drawings. They are a widespread, almost obsessive outpouring of grief, terror, and a grim acceptance. The people here, the survivors, have internalized the plague's devastating message, and it has manifest in this chilling, relentless art. The skeletal grin is everywhere, a permanent fixture on the landscape, a stark reminder of the universal equalizer that swept through their lives. It's a defiant, yet desperate, acknowledgement of their mortality. You approach a church, not a grand cathedral, but a simple parish building. On its outer wall, a large fresco, recently painted, depicts a dance macabre. Figures of all stations, a king, a peasant, a monk, a merchant, are shown being led away by gleeful skeletons, all dancing towards a common, unavoidable grave. The colors are muted, somber, but the message is stark, undeniable. No one escaped. No one is safe. And death, in its skeletal form, is now the ultimate, triumphant lord. You run your hand over the rough paint, feeling the gritty texture of ash and pigment. The coldness of the stone seeps into your fingers, a constant companion. This art is not beautiful, not comforting. It is raw, disturbing, a visceral scream of a traumatized society trying to process the incomprehensible. It's an art born of fear, a desperate attempt to externalize the internal horror. to give shape to the invisible enemy that took so much. The absence of life, the silence of God, the cruelty of man, the desperation of children, they all converge here in this macabre imagery. The grinning skeleton on every wall isn't just a representation of death. It's a mirror reflecting the brokenness of the world, the utter powerlessness of humanity in the face of such overwhelming loss. You realize that the real horror after the plague isn't just the dead, but the profound, irreversible shift in the living, a collective trauma so deep it has fundamentally reshaped their perception of life, making death itself an inescapable, omnipresent, grinning companion on every wall, in every corner of their traumatized world. This art is not about hope. It's about a chilling, universal resignation. The chilling grin of the skeletons painted on every wall feels like a constant, cold judgment, a pervasive presence in this traumatized town. You walk through the streets, the air heavy with the scent of damp stone, dust, and an underlying current of fear. The art isn't just decoration. It's a statement, a morbid philosophy that has permeated every aspect of life, every interaction. You stop by a small market stall, where a gaunt woman is attempting to sell a few shriveled turnips. A child, no older than 4, plays nearby, not with a wooden horse or a doll, but with a crudely fashioned clay skeleton, making it dance and twirl in the dust. His laughter is thin, unchildlike, almost hollow. You watch him, a knot tightening in your gut. Death isn't a distant fear for him. It's a plaything, a familiar companion, woven into the very fabric of his innocent yet scarred world. As you move further, you notice the way people interact. There's a curious blend of grim resignation and a desperate, almost frantic embrace of the moment. 2 men argue over a small sack of grain, their voices sharp, but their eyes hold a strange detachment, as if the argument itself is just another fleeting performance in the shadow of the inevitable. There's a sense that all endeavors, all plans, all earthly concerns are ultimately futile. The specter of mortality doesn't just loom. It dances among them, a silent, unseen partner in every step, every breath. You enter a small tavern, seeking a brief respite from the biting cold and the omnipresent skeletal gaze. The air inside is thick, with the smell of cheap ale, sweat, and a pervasive staleness. A few patrons sit hunched over their drinks, their faces etched with weariness. On a rough wooden table, someone has scratched a detailed image of a skeleton, leading a group of revelers in a dance. Even here, in a place meant for fleeting comfort, the message is clear. You order a cup of thin ale, the copper coins heavy in your hand. The tavern keeper, a man with a perpetually tired expression, serves you without a word, his gaze distant, as if his mind is elsewhere. You watch the other patrons. They drink, they sigh, they occasionally exchange a few clipped words, but there's no genuine merriment, no hearty laughter. It's a somber, muted existence, played out under the unseen but felt presence of the dance of death. The constant awareness of death isn't just a thought. It's a lived reality, a filter through which every moment is experienced. The joy of a warm meal is fleeting, knowing how many starve. The comfort of a roof overhead is temporary, knowing how many homes are abandoned. The very act of living is a constant negotiation with the specter of your own mortality, a silent question hanging in the air. Whose turn is next? You finish your ale, the bitter taste lingering on your tongue. The cold outside still calls, but the cold within you has deepened, an understanding of a different kind of horror. The real horror, after the plague, you realize, isn't just the mass graves or the empty villages. It's the profound, irreversible psychological scarring of the survivors, the way death has become normalized, fetishized, an ever-present companion that dictates every thought, every action, every muted emotion. Living daily with the constant mocking presence of your own mortality, with the knowledge that the dance of death can sweep you away at any moment, is a purgatory far more insidious and enduring than any physical torment. It's a complete and total reshaping of what it means to be alive. The bitter taste of stale ale and the chilling image of the dancing skeleton still cling to you as you leave the tavern. The pervasive sense of a world haunted by death settling deeper into your bones. You walk the winding, muddy paths that lead out of the town, the air growing colder, sharper. As you follow a narrow track, a different kind of sound reaches you. A low, persistent groaning punctuated by short, hacking coughs. It's the sound of sickness, raw and undeniable, a familiar, unwelcome echo of the past. It leads you to a small, isolated dwelling, barely more than a shack, nestled in a dip in the land. A thin wisp of smoke struggles from its chimney, a fragile sign of life. You approach cautiously, the crunch of frozen earth under your boots seeming unnaturally loud. The smell that drifts from the shack is immediate and potent, a cloying, medicinal odor heavy with the scent of herbs, rosemary, thyme, possibly garlic, mixed with the sickly sweet tang of fevered sweat and decay. It's the smell of desperate attempts to fight an enemy that cannot be defeated. You push open the door, which hangs ajar, revealing a cramped, dim interior. In the center of the single room, on a rough pallet of straw, lies a man, his body convulsing with a dry, rattling cough. His skin is slick with sweat, his eyes wide and bloodshot, fixed on some unseen terror. On his neck, a purplish, swollen lump, hot and angry, pulses ominously. A bubo, the unmistakable mark of the plague. Beside him, a woman, her face drawn and haggard with exhaustion and fear, works frantically. Her hands are stained green with herbs, and she's pressing a thick, foul-smelling poultice onto the man's swollen neck. You watch her, her fingers trembling with desperate hope, applying the mixture with a meticulous, almost ritualistic care. But as she pulls her hand away, the poultice slips, revealing the bubo beneath, still angry, still throbbing, utterly unchanged. The man lets out another groan, a sound of hopeless misery. The air in the shack is thick, suffocating, heavy with the smells of fever and futile remedies. You see other discarded poultices, dried and crumbling, scattered on the floor, testament to previous, equally failed attempts. The woman glances up, her eyes meeting yours, not with suspicion or fear, but with a profound, exhausted resignation. There's no accusation in her gaze, only the dead weight of knowing. Knowing that her efforts are useless. Knowing that the herbs, the ancient wisdom, the desperate prayers, none of it matters. She tries again, pressing the poultice back onto the bubo with renewed, desperate energy, her jaw tight, her knuckles white. But you see the subtle tremble in her hands, the way her shoulders slump, the flicker of defeat in her eyes. The man on the pallet lets out another rasping breath, his chest heaving. The poultice, a symbol of hope in countless other ailments, Here is just a useless, pathetic gesture against an unstoppable tide. You feel a profound sense of despair settle over you. This isn't just a man dying. It's a living embodiment of the humiliation of failed medicine, the absolute powerlessness of human knowledge against this invisible enemy. The real horror after the plague, you realize, isn't just the death it causes, but the crushing defeat of all efforts to stop it. The sight of that useless poultice, applied with such desperate, futile hope, is a stark reminder that in the face of true catastrophe, humanity's greatest efforts can be rendered utterly meaningless, leaving behind only the bitter taste of helplessness and the gnawing knowledge that there is truly nothing anyone can do. The image of that useless poultice, the desperate, defeated look in the woman's eyes, still clings to you as you leave the dying man behind. The smell of fever and futile herbs seems to linger in your nostrils, a constant reminder of humanity's powerlessness. You walk on, the winter air a sharp cleansing bite against your face, but it does little to clear the profound despair in your mind. You find yourself drawn, almost instinctively, to a larger, more imposing building in the next town, one that somehow survived the general desolation. It's a monastery, its stone walls cold and silent, but not entirely devoid of life. A faint glow of lamplight flickers from a window in the scriptorium, a solitary beacon in the encroaching gloom. The air around it smells of old parchment, beeswax, and a faint sweet aroma of ink, a world apart from the smells of death and desperation you've grown accustomed to. You push open the heavy wooden door and step into a long, echoing hallway. The silence here is different, a scholarly quiet, broken only by the soft, rhythmic scratching of a quill. You follow the sound to the scriptorium, a large, cold room lined with shelves packed with ancient texts. At a heavy wooden table, hunched over a vast illuminated manuscript, sits a lone monk. He is an old man, his face thin and weary, his brow furrowed in concentration. His fingers, gnarled with age, trace the lines of text. He glances up as you enter, his eyes, magnified by spectacles, holding a flicker of surprise, then a weary curiosity. You approach the table, your heavy boots thudding softly on the stone floor, the gold in your pouch forgotten. Your gaze falls upon the open book. It's a medical text, ancient and revered, its pages filled with intricate diagrams of the human body and dense Latin script, detailing theories of humors, miasmas, and traditional remedies. You point to the text, then to your neck, a silent gesture towards the buboes you've seen, towards the plague. The monk's eyes darken with a profound, almost personal grief. He nods slowly, then sighs, a sound that carries the weight of countless lost lives. He turns a page, pointing to a section detailing poultices and bloodletting, methods you just witnessed failing so miserably. He looks at you, his gaze searching, then back at the text. His expression shifts, a subtle flicker of something you haven't seen before. Doubt. He traces a line of text with his finger, then slowly, almost imperceptibly, shakes his head. It's a quiet, terrifying act. For centuries, these texts were gospel, the unquestionable wisdom of the ancients. To doubt them, to question their efficacy, is a profound act of intellectual rebellion, a break from millennia of accepted truth. He pushes the heavy book slightly away, a gesture of quiet repudiation. He picks up a fresh sheet of parchment, dips his quill, and begins to draw not the intricate anatomical diagrams of the past, but crude, hurried sketches of the buboes, the blackened fingers, the ravaged lungs, observations from his own grim experiences, not from the texts. He looks at you again, his eyes meeting yours, and in their depths you see not despair, but a raw, unsettling spark of pure reason. He is not just witnessing the failure of ancient wisdom, he is daring to question it, to seek new answers in the face of unprecedented horror. The air feels charged with the quiet courage of this act. The real horror after the plague, you realize, isn't just the death it brought, but the shattering of all knowledge, all certainty. But in that shattering, a terrible, frightening opportunity is born. The terrifying act of questioning everything, of discarding millennia of accepted truth to face the unknown with nothing but raw observation and a desperate, fragile glimmer of human reason. It's a terrifying freedom, a profound loneliness, to stand at the precipice of ignorance and dare to seek a new path, with no guide but your own bewildered mind. The image of the questioning monk, daring to challenge millennia of established wisdom, offers a fragile spark in the profound darkness of this world, a glimmer of the human spirit's capacity for adaptability. But as you leave the monastery, the chill of the winter air and the stark reality of survival quickly reassert themselves. The gold in your pouch is still a confusing weight, its value fluctuating wildly in this remade world. As you trek towards the next horizon, a new, unsettling sound begins to drift on the wind, replacing the usual desolation. It's a metallic clang, sharp and irregular, followed by muffled shouts and the dull thud of blows. It's the sound of conflict, and it's coming from a valley ahead. This isn't the ritualistic self-harm of the flagellants, nor the methodical cruelty of a reasserted lord. This sounds raw, chaotic, desperate. You approach the crest of a hill, moving cautiously, your hand instinctively going to the small knife at your belt. From the hilltop, you can see into the valley below. It's not a village, it's a field, bordered by sparse trees, and in the middle of it, two groups of people are locked in a brutal, chaotic struggle. The air smells of exertion, fear, and a faint coppery scent that makes your stomach clench. These aren't soldiers. They are peasants, farmers, recognizable by their rough tunics and worn leggings. But their hands, instead of holding hoes or plows, grip makeshift weapons. You see a shovel, its edge crudely sharpened, wielded like a club. A pitchfork, its tines glinting menacingly, is thrust forward. And then you see it. A scythe. Not the gentle arcing tool used to harvest grain, but a terrifying sweeping blade, swung with lethal intent. Its distinctive metallic whoosh, followed by a sickening thud, cuts through the shouts and grunts, leaving a chill in your blood. The two groups clash, a desperate ballet of survival. One side seems to be defending a small, makeshift barricade of fallen logs and branches, while the other attempts to breach it. You can't discern the cause of the conflict. Land? Food? A past grievance magnified by current desperation? It doesn't matter. What matters is the utter transformation of these tools. A scythe, once a symbol of life, of sustenance, is now a weapon of death. A pitchfork, meant to turn hay, is now a spear. The field tools have indeed gone to war. You watch as a man falls, struck by a shovel, his body collapsing to the frozen earth with a dull thud. His attacker, breathing heavily, quickly turns to face the next opponent, his face grim, devoid of emotion. There's no honor here, no grand strategy, just the raw, primal urge to survive, to protect what little they have, even if it means taking the lives of others who are just as desperate. The sounds of clashing metal, strange shouts, and the heavy breathing of fighting men fill the valley, a stark contrast to the silence of the abandoned world you've traversed. The sun casts long, cold shadows over the field, illuminating the brutal dance below. The real horror after the plague, you realize, isn't just the mass deaths, or the collapse of faith, or the psychological torment. It's this: the complete breakdown of civil society, the descent into brutal internecine warfare among the survivors. When law and order vanish, when the basic necessities become scarce, humanity turns on itself, twisting the very tools of life into instruments of death. The sound of that scythe, used as a weapon, will echo in your memory, a terrifying testament to a world where even the most benign objects have been corrupted by desperation and fear, proving that the most dangerous beasts are often found among those who claim to be human. The brutal clang of field tools turned weapons still rings in your ears, the raw desperation of peasant fighting peasant etched into your memory. You stayed hidden, watching the chaotic skirmish until one side faltered, then broke, scattering into the sparse woods. The sounds of conflict slowly died down, replaced by the mournful cries of the wounded and the chilling silence of victory. Now, as twilight descends once more, you venture down into the valley, your boots crunching on the frozen earth. The air is heavy, thick, with new, potent smells. The sharp, metallic tang of fresh blood is undeniable, clinging to the frosty air. But underneath it, another odor, acrid and bitter, curls into your nostrils. The unmistakable smell of burned hay and smoldering wood. It's the scent of destruction, of vengeance, a brutal punctuation mark on the violence you just witnessed. You walk across the field, your eyes scanning the grim aftermath. Bodies lie scattered on the frozen ground, still and unmoving, their rough tunics stained dark crimson. A broken pitchfork leans against a fallen log, its tines bent. A discarded scythe, its curved blade smeared, lies partially buried in the mud, a stark reminder of its recent, lethal purpose. The makeshift barricade is shattered, splintered wood scattered everywhere. The ground is churned and marred, a testament to the ferocious, desperate struggle that just took place. Beyond the field, a cluster of small farm buildings, perhaps the homes of the losing side, is engulfed in an orange glow. Flames lick greedily at the wooden walls and thatched roofs, sending plumes of black smoke spiraling into the darkening sky. The heat reaches you even from this distance, a sickening warmth against the cold, a chilling counterpoint to the frozen bodies at your feet. This isn't just a battle, it's a brutal suppression, a punitive act meant to break the spirit, to crush any further defiance. The taste in your mouth is bitter, a phantom sensation of burned hay and blood, an echo of the destructive energies that just consumed this place. You look at the burning homes, then at the bodies, and a profound sense of despair settles over you. This wasn't a grand war for ideology. This was a desperate struggle for survival, for scraps, for what little land remained. And the aftermath is total, merciless. The victors have not only claimed the field, they have annihilated their opponents, leaving nothing but ruin and ash. The silence that now descends is heavier, more profound than any you've encountered before. It's not the silence of abandonment, but the silence of utter defeat, of lives violently extinguished, of hope burned to ashes. The flickering flames cast dancing shadows over the grim landscape, turning the scene into a tableau of medieval brutality. A stark warning. The real horror after the plague, you realize with a cold dread, isn't just the millions who died. It's the brutal, unforgiving world forged by those who remain, where the line between survival and savagery has completely blurred, where the very act of trying to reclaim your freedom, to stand up for yourself, can be met with such swift, absolute, and fiery retribution. The taste of burned hay and blood will forever be a chilling reminder of the utter desolation that can follow even a failed whisper of hope. The bitter taste of burned hay and blood still lingers in the cold air, a grim reminder of the brutal peasant revolt and its fiery suppression. You turn your back on that charred valley, the image of bodies and burning homes seared into your memory. The gold in your pouch feels heavier now, a dangerous double-edged burden. You trek on, seeking not solace but simply an understanding of this remade world. As you approach yet another settlement, this one larger, with more signs of rebuilding and wary, busy people, a different kind of order manifests itself. The chaos you've witnessed, the shattered hierarchies, the desperation, it seems some are trying to force it back into rigid structures. The air here smells of damp wool, wood smoke, and a faint, almost metallic scent of newly forged iron, a sign of renewed industry, but also renewed control. You enter the market square, where goods are being traded, and the hum of human activity is louder, more organized. You notice the people immediately. Their clothing. Not everyone, but a distinct group of individuals. Their tunics are made of finer wool, their cloaks edged with delicate embroidery, their shoes of soft, supple leather. They move with an air of subtle superiority, their gazes sweeping over the rougher-clad common folk with a practiced disdain. These are the survivors of the nobility, or those who have risen to fill the vacuum of power, trying to re-establish the old social order. Then you see him, a man, not in fine clothing, but in the rough, patched garments of a laborer, stands before a stall, his face drawn in a haggard plea. The stall owner, dressed in a tunic of rich, dark blue, shakes his head dismissively. You notice what the laborer is trying to trade. A small, almost childishly simple wooden bird, similar to the one you found in the merchant's house. And then you see what he's wearing. Or trying to wear. A narrow strip of what looks like faded dark velvet stitched crudely to the collar of his rough tunic. It's a small detail, but it instantly draws the stall owner's sharp, disapproving stare. The stall owner points to the velvet with a dismissive finger, then to the laborer's tattered shoes. He shakes his head again, more forcefully this time, his mouth a thin, hard line. The message is clear, even without words. That velvet, however worn or small, is not for him. It belongs to another station, another class. Even in this shattered world, where millions are dead, where commoners now own abandoned lands, the powerful are attempting to reimpose the rigid laws of sumptuary, dictating who can wear what, who can aspire to what. The laborer's shoulders slump, a visible deflation of spirit. He knows. He understands the unspoken threat in the stall owner's eyes, the memory of the Lord's whip still fresh in this reshaped society. He pulls his rough tunic closer, trying to hide the offending scrap of velvet, but it's too late. The law, unwritten but powerful, has been enforced. You feel a profound sense of irony and a cold anger. After such cataclysmic loss, after the old world crumbled, you might expect true equality, a society rebuilt on shared suffering. Instead, the instinct to control, to divide, to subjugate, is reasserting itself with chilling efficiency. The uncomfortable velvet, a small, almost insignificant detail, becomes a potent symbol. The real horror after the plague, you realize, isn't just the death and chaos. It's the way humanity, even after being brought to its knees, almost immediately attempts to rebuild its systems of oppression, its petty hierarchies, its rigid rules. It's the crushing weight of a society trying to dictate what you can wear, what you can be, in a world where everyone has been stripped bare. A stark reminder that even in the face of oblivion, some lessons are never learned. The image of that laborer, humbled by a scrap of velvet, still burns in your mind, a stark reminder of the enduring human need for hierarchy, even after catastrophe. You continue your journey through the reshaped world, the cold bite of winter, a constant companion. The gold in your pouch is a curious thing. Sometimes it feels like a promise, sometimes a burden. You've seen its uselessness, its power, and now you will see its danger. You arrive at a bustling crossroads, a place where people from different scattered settlements gather to trade and seek news. The air is alive with the murmur of voices, the clatter of carts, and a cacophony of smells. Wood smoke, horse sweat, stale bread, and the rich, unfamiliar scent of cooked meat. This place feels more vibrant, more vital than many you've seen, a testament to humanity's resilient drive to rebuild, even if on broken foundations. You move through the throng, your gaze sweeping over the faces. You see commoners, haggard but busy, and a few individuals in finer attire, remnants of the old nobility, or new figures of power. Your own cloak, though rough-spun, and the sturdy boots, once the possessions of a deceased merchant, mark you as someone of slightly elevated, or at least ambiguous status. You notice the way people assess each other, a quick, almost imperceptible sizing up, a constant evaluation of threat and opportunity. Then, you see him. A man, standing near a wagon laden with furs, his posture radiating an unusual confidence. His clothing is remarkable, almost shockingly so for a commoner. He wears a tunic of fine, deep red wool, a color usually reserved for the wealthy. His breeches are made of good quality linen, and on his finger a silver ring with a polished stone, not unlike the one you carry, catches the meager winter light. His boots are well made, of supple leather, similar in quality to your own. He moves with a newfound swagger, a man who has clearly prospered in this reshaped world, perhaps by claiming abandoned lands or through shrewd, opportunistic trade. Across the square, a group of men dressed in the drab, worn livery of a feudal lord's household stand gathered. Their leader, a younger man with a thin, cruel face, catches sight of the finely dressed commoner. His eyes, initially dismissive, narrow to slits. You watch as his gaze sweeps over the commoner's red tunic. The quality of his breeches, the gleam of the silver ring, a flicker of something raw, ugly, and intensely dangerous crosses his face. Envy. It's not just simple jealousy. It's a deeper, more venomous emotion. It's the envy of someone whose inherited status, whose very definition of power, has been eroded by the plague. This commoner, through sheer survival and opportunism, now wears the trappings that, in the old world, would have been exclusively the Lord's domain. The Lord's man takes a step forward, his hand instinctively going to the hilt of his short sword. His eyes burn with resentment, with a bitter, simmering rage at this audacious transgression of the natural order. The air around them tightens, suddenly charged with unspoken threat. The commoner, sensing the shift, subtly stiffens, his hand dropping to the small knife at his belt. He knows the danger. He understands that his newfound prosperity, his very attire, is a challenge, an insult to the remnants of the old aristocracy. You feel a profound sense of foreboding. The real horror after the plague, you realize, isn't just the death and the chaos, or the attempts to reimpose old rules. It's the burning, corrosive envy of those who once held power, now watching commoners rise and appropriate their symbols of status. It's the rage born of a shattered world, where a simple red tunic can become a deadly provocation. The tense standoff between the newly wealthy commoner and the envious Lord's man lingers in your mind, a chilling snapshot of humanity's enduring petty cruelties. You leave the crossroads, the hum of wary commerce giving way to the stark silence of the open country. The winter sun, pale and weak, offers little comfort as you follow a lonely, overgrown track, your boots crunching on the frozen earth. The gold in your pouch now feels like a magnet for trouble, a dangerous beacon in a world increasingly devoid of law. As you round a bend in the road, a new sound reaches you, not the clanging of farmers, tools, or the cries of the whipped, but a low, guttural murmur of human voices, closer than you'd like. And then a glint, a sharp, unmistakable gleam of steel catching the weak sunlight. Your heart gives a sudden, hard thump against your ribs. Your hand instinctively drops to the small knife at your belt, its worn handle a poor comfort against the sight ahead. Standing in the middle of the lonely road, blocking your path, are three figures. They are rough-looking men, clad in a patchwork of worn leather and coarse wool, their faces hardened by cold and suspicion. But it's their gear that truly makes you pause. They carry more than just common tools. One has a broadsword, its blade dulled but heavy. Another shoulders a short, brutish axe. The third holds a long, sturdy spear, its point glinting wickedly. These are not peasants, nor desperate farmers. These are men accustomed to violence, men who have chosen a new path in this broken world. These are bandits, mercenaries perhaps, turned highwaymen. The air thickens with tension, cold and sharp as the steel they wield. There's no greeting, no warning, just a silent, predatory assessment. Their eyes, cold and calculating, sweep over your cloak, your boots, lingering on the subtle bulge of the gold in your pouch. They know. They see what you possess, or what they think you possess. They see an opportunity. You stop, your stance wary, your breath misting in the cold air. The man with the broadsword takes a slow, deliberate step forward. His boot falls unnervingly silent on the frozen ground. His face is a grim mask, etched with hunger and a chilling lack of empathy. His sword, casually held, points loosely towards you. There is no need for words. Their intent is as clear as the gleam on his blade. You feel a profound, gut-wrenching realization. The old protections, the Lord's peace, the King's justice, they are gone, vanished with the millions who died. The roads, once arteries of trade and travel, are now hunting grounds. The societal structure has not merely fractured, it has eroded, leaving behind a brutal vacuum where only the strong, the ruthless, and the desperate can truly survive. These men are not merely criminals. They are a symptom of the new world, a terrifying byproduct of chaos. Your hand grips the hilt of your knife tighter. The cold metal a small, almost pathetic comfort. The gold in your pouch, once a symbol of unearned fortune, now feels like a curse, a magnet drawing this danger to you. The real horror after the plague, you realize with a chilling clarity, isn't just the death it brought, or the madness it inspired. It's the rise of such unbridled, opportunistic brutality, the complete breakdown of safety, the terrifying truth that on any lonely road, in any shadowed thicket, you can become prey to those who have fully embraced the savagery of this new lawless age. The gleam of steel on this lonely road is a stark, terrifying reminder that in this world, trust is a luxury no one can afford, and violence is the only language universally understood. The cold, hard gleam of mercenary steel on the lonely road still prickles at your memory, a stark reminder of the lawless brutality that now governs the land. You manage to slip away, to avoid confrontation, the gold in your pouch, untouched but feeling heavier, a magnet for the kind of desperation you just encountered. You continue your trek, the wind whipping around your heavy cloak, seeking not safety, but simply understanding. As you follow a winding, frost-covered track, a familiar scene begins to unfold in the distance. A small farmstead, nestled by a frozen stream. But this time, there is no thin wisp of smoke, no sign of life, no desperate peasant working the fields. Instead, a deeper, more chilling silence hangs over the place. A silence that speaks not of absence, but of violation. The air here smells of damp straw, overturned earth, and a faint acrid tang of something recently disturbed, something left behind. You approach cautiously, your boots crunching on the frozen ground. The gate to the farmyard hangs broken, ripped from its hinges. The door to the main hut is similarly shattered, lying askew, splintered wood jutting out like broken teeth. This isn't just an abandoned place. This is a place that has been brutally ransacked. The thought sends a cold knot of dread twisting in your stomach. You step into the farmyard. Everything is in disarray. Tools lie scattered, some broken, some missing. A chicken coop is overturned, its feathers blowing in the wind. A small wooden cart lies on its side, one wheel gone, its contents emptied and strewn across the frozen mud. This is the aftermath of the mercenary bandits you just avoided, or others like them. This is the new law of the sword, etched in splintered wood and scattered possessions. You peer into the open doorway of the hut. Inside, the meager furnishings are overturned. A rough wooden table is on its side, its legs broken. A storage chest lies open, its contents undoubtedly emptied. Straw from the sleeping pallets is strewn everywhere. There's nothing left. No food, no tools, no precious few comforts. Just the raw, silent evidence of violent theft. The air inside is colder than outside, permeated with the ghostly presence of fear and desperation. As you turn to leave, your gaze falls on something near the ruined hearth. A small, carefully carved wooden doll, its paint faded, lies face down in the dirt, its head almost severed. It's a child's toy, left behind, or perhaps deliberately discarded in the brutal haste of the ransacking. You reach down, picking it up, the cold, smooth wood heavy in your hand. It's a poignant, heartbreaking symbol of the utter disregard for human life, for innocence, that such lawlessness brings. The silence here is profound, heavy with the weight of stolen hopes, violated sanctuary, and an unspoken fear. It's the silence of a robbed farmstead, a space where lives were utterly, violently disrupted, leaving nothing but emptiness and ruin. The gold in your pouch feels like a target, a dangerous, meaningless burden. The real horror after the plague, you realize with a sickening clarity, isn't just the death and the chaos. It's the complete and utter collapse of any semblance of safety or justice. It's the reign of the sword, where the weak are simply prey, and everything you own, everything you build, can be taken in a moment of brutal, casual violence. This farmstead, ravaged and silent, is a stark, chilling testament to a world where the only law is force, and the only protection is what you can wield to defend yourself. The silence of the robbed farmstead, the broken doll, the lingering scent of violence, it all leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. You leave that scene of devastation behind, the gold in your pouch feeling like a heavy, dangerous secret. As you travel, the world remains fractured, but a new, subtle shift begins to make itself known. A quiet, almost imperceptible change in the fabric of surviving society. You find yourself in a bustling town, one that seems to have weathered the storm better than most. There are still many people, though their faces are grim, their movements weary. The air here smells of wood smoke, baking bread, and a faint sweet aroma of brewing ale. But as you navigate the crowded thoroughfares, you notice something different in the rhythm and the way things are run. You approach the main gate, a heavy wooden structure that still provides a measure of security. Usually, a gatekeeper, a man, would be overseeing the flow of traffic, collecting tolls, asserting authority. Today, however, a woman stands there. She's not young, her face lined with hardship, her hands calloused. She wears a simple, practical gown, but around her waist, hanging from a thick leather belt, is a heavy ring of iron keys, not just one or two, but a whole cluster, their metallic jingle a constant, significant sound as she moves. She gestures to a farmer trying to pass with his cart, her movements economical, her gaze direct and unyielding. The farmer, a burly man, looks hesitant, but he complies, pulling out a few copper coins and handing them to her. She accepts them, her hand firm, her expression unreadable. There's no deference in her posture, no apology for her presence. She simply occupies the role, her authority palpable. You watch her for a long moment. Those keys are a symbol. They represent access, control, the management of vital resources, the granary, the storehouse, perhaps even the town's treasury. In the old world, these would have been exclusively a man's domain, specifically a man of some standing. But now, with so many men gone, so many families shattered, women are stepping into roles they never would have occupied, thrust into positions of power out of sheer necessity. You observe the subtle ways she carries herself. There's a weariness in her shoulders, a deep exhaustion, but also a newfound strength, a quiet resilience. She doesn't seek this power. It has been thrust upon her, a heavy mantle of responsibility she clearly feels. The metallic jingle of the keys, once a distant masculine sound, now resonates with a new feminine authority. It's not a joyful sound, not a triumphant one. It's the sound of grim duty, of adaptation in the face of impossible loss. You walk past her, close enough to feel the cold metal of the keys brush against your cloak as she moves. The sheer weight of that ring, the responsibility it represents, is almost palpable. The real horror after the plague, you realize, isn't just the death and the chaos. It's the crushing burden placed upon those who survived, the sudden, unwanted power forced upon individuals who never sought it, who are now tasked with rebuilding a world from its ruins. The weight of those keys, so heavy and significant, symbolizes not just her new role, but the profound, unsettling shift in the fabric of society, a grim testament to the fact that leadership now falls to whoever remains, regardless of gender or former station. And in that, there is both a silent tragedy and an undeniable, if somber, strength. The metallic jingle of the gatekeeper's keys still echoes in your mind, a potent symbol of women stepping into roles once exclusively held by men. The cold, crisp air of the bustling town carries a constant hum of muted activity, a fragile testament to humanity's attempt to rebuild. But even amidst this rebuilding, a new, insidious current of tension makes itself known, particularly in the way men and women now interact. You move through the market square, where goods are being traded and news exchanged, your cloak pulled close. You observe the faces, the weary expressions, the guarded eyes, but now you begin to notice something more specific. A young woman, perhaps a widow, is selling eggs from a basket. Her movements are quick, efficient, her gaze sharp as she counts out coins. A man approaches her stall, ostensibly to buy eggs. He is younger, burly, his face scarred. His eyes, however, are not on the eggs. They are on her. His gaze lingers, not with simple admiration, but with an unsettling blend of desire and a proprietary assessment. He smiles, a slow, predatory curving of his lips, and his eyes flick to the small silver ring on her finger. Perhaps a wedding band, now a stark symbol of her widowhood. The air between them, despite the crowd, suddenly feels taut, charged with an unspoken tension. He doesn't touch her, doesn't speak a crude word, but his presence, his gaze, is a violation. The woman senses it. Her shoulders subtly stiffen, her movements become more guarded. She avoids his direct gaze, her eyes darting nervously to the surrounding crowd. Her hand, when she takes his coins, is quick, almost snatching them. There's a forced politeness in her expression, a mask of weary deference she wears to navigate this perilous new social landscape. She knows, you know, that her newfound independence, her control over her own trade, her very existence as an unattached woman, makes her a target. You step closer, almost instinctively, blending in, trying to catch any words, any unspoken threat. The man leans in slightly, his voice a low murmur, too soft for you to hear, but the woman recoils, a barely perceptible flinch. Her eyes, when they meet yours for a fleeting second, are wide with a desperate, silent plea for a witness, for protection. Then, just as quickly she looks away, as if acknowledging you might make her situation worse. The danger isn't overt, it's subtle, pervasive. The plague has decimated the population, leaving vast opportunities for those who remain. For men, that means land, resources, power. For women, it often means a terrifying vulnerability. The social structures that once offered protection, however imperfectly, have crumbled. A man's gaze, once constrained by community norms, now carries a new weight, a predatory freedom born of a depopulated world. you feel a profound sense of unease. The gold in your pouch, the sturdy boots, the cloak, they offer only a superficial layer of security. The real horror after the plague, you realize with chilling clarity, isn't just the death and the chaos. It's the insidious redefinition of relationships, the way vulnerability is exploited, the constant unspoken threat that hangs over the few surviving women. The danger in that man's gaze is a stark, terrifying reminder that in a world without law, without established order, basic human decency can be easily abandoned, leaving opportunity and peril to walk hand in hand, particularly for those who now find themselves tragically alone. It's a world where the unspoken rules are written in fear, and the cost of survival can be profoundly, tragically high. The lingering danger in that man's gaze, the unspoken threat, still prickles at your memory as you leave the fragile, rebuilding town. You continue your journey, the bitter cold, a constant reminder of the harsh world you now inhabit. The gold in your pouch is less a burden and more an increasingly essential tool, a means to navigate the opportunities and perils that arise in this depopulated land. You walk for what feels like an eternity, the desolate landscape unbroken save for the occasional skeletal tree or abandoned dwelling. Your stomach growls, a familiar ache, but a different kind of hunger begins to stir within you. It's not just for sustenance, it's for something more, something richer than the rough bread and dried meat you've subsisted on. Then, a new smell, rich and savory, drifts on the cold air, pulling you forward with an almost irresistible force. It's the unmistakable aroma of roasting meat, mingled with the earthy scent of wood smoke, and a sweet, almost luxurious undertone. It leads you to a small, isolated inn, a miracle of survival in this desolate stretch of road. Its windows glow with a warm, inviting light. The sounds of muffled voices, of a crackling fire reach you, a symphony of human life that feels almost unreal. You push open the heavy wooden door, and a wave of warmth washes over you, carrying with it the intoxicating scent of a feast. The air is thick with it. Roasted beef, simmering herbs, fresh-baked bread, and something else, something creamy and rich like churned butter. Your eyes scan the room. It's small, crowded with a mix of weary travelers and local farmers, their faces flushed from the heat of the hearth and the plentiful food. On a long, rough wooden table, platters piled high with glistening cuts of roasted beef sit next to bowls overflowing with steaming vegetables. Loaves of dark, crusty bread are generously spread with thick yellow butter, its rich scent almost dizzying. This is not the meager gruel, the thin pottage, the endless blandness that defined the peasant diet for centuries. This is abundance. Unprecedented, shocking abundance. You find a spot at the end of the table, pulling out a few copper coins from your pouch, ready to pay for whatever meager portion they might offer. But the innkeeper, a robust woman with a kind but no-nonsense face, simply pushes a wooden plate towards you, piled high with food. "Eat, traveler," she says, her voice rough but warm. "There's plenty now. No one goes hungry in this house if we can help it." You pick up a piece of roasted beef, the meat tender and yielding, its savory juices filling your mouth. It's rich, decadent, a flavor you barely remember. You spread a thick layer of butter on a piece of bread, the creamy fat melting onto the warm crust, its salty sweetness a revelation. You chew slowly, savoring every mouthful, every taste, a profound sense of awe washing over you. This isn't just a meal, it's a revolution. The sheer availability of food, of such luxurious food, is a direct consequence of the plague. With so many people gone, so much land untended, the survivors are inheriting a bounty. Livestock that once fed lords now feeds commoners. Fields that once strained to yield meager crops for a starving populace now lie fallow, or are easily managed to produce a surplus. The social structure of scarcity has been shattered. The real horror after the plague, you realize, isn't just the death and the chaos. It's this perverse, unsettling paradox that for some, the greatest tragedy has brought about an unprecedented, if unasked for, prosperity. The taste of butter and beef, so rich and satisfying, marks the end of 1,000 years of gruel, a shocking, almost guilt-inducing luxury in a world built on profound loss. And as you eat, you can't help but wonder what new horrors, what new challenges this sudden, unexpected abundance will bring. The rich taste of butter and beef still lingers on your tongue, a shocking, almost overwhelming memory of abundance in a world defined by scarcity. You leave the inn, the warmth of its fire, a fleeting comfort against the biting winter air, the gold in your pouch feeling less significant than the memory of that meal. The world outside is still cold, still desolate, but now a new kind of realization begins to dawn. Tied to the very earth beneath your sturdy boots, you walk through the open countryside, the sun a pale disk in the winter sky. You pass countless fields, stretching to the horizon, but they are empty, not barren, not starved, but simply untended. Thick, dark earth, rich and fertile, lies fallow, covered only by a thin layer of frost and dormant winter weeds. This isn't the exhausted soil of overcultivated lands. This is deep, nutrient-rich earth waiting for hands that are no longer there. You stop at the edge of one such field, your boots sinking slightly into the damp, soft soil beneath the frost. You reach down, running your fingers through the dark, crumbly earth. It's cold, but surprisingly pliable, full of the promise of life. It smells earthy, damp, and fertile, a potent aroma of potential. This field, stretching further than you can see, was once someone's livelihood, someone's burden, someone's inherited plot, carefully managed for generations. Now it's just available, unclaimed. The sheer scale of it is staggering. Acres upon acres of prime farmland left to the elements. With so many people gone, the pressure on the land has vanished. What was once a precious, fought-over commodity, controlled by powerful lords and worked by struggling serfs, is now an open, boundless resource. A profound sense of opportunity, terrifying in its immensity, begins to stir within you. You walk further into the field, the silence broken only by the whisper of the wind through the dry grasses. Your mind, accustomed to the grim realities of medieval life, the scarcity, the constant hunger, the rigid social order dictating who owned what, struggles to comprehend this new paradigm. Land, limitless, fertile land, for anyone strong enough to claim it, brave enough to work it. The thought is both exhilarating and deeply unsettling, but with this promise comes a peril. A stark memory of the peasant revolt you witnessed, the ruthless suppression of those who dared to claim what was once denied them. The land may be abundant, but the lords and their remaining proxies will not give it up easily. They may have fewer peasants to work it, but their desire for control remains. This rich, unclaimed earth is not just a symbol of opportunity. It is a future battleground, a source of new conflict. You scoop up a handful of the dark, fertile soil, letting it sift through your fingers, feeling its cold, life-giving weight. The real horror after the plague, you realize with chilling clarity, isn't just the death it brought, or the chaos it unleashed. It's the profound, unsettling shift in the very foundations of society. The overturning of millennia of established order, the abundance of unclaimed land, once a utopian dream, is now a stark, dangerous reality. It promises freedom and prosperity to those bold enough to seize it, but also carries the seeds of new conflicts, new brutalities, as the few who remain fight to redefine their place in a world where everything, even the earth itself, has been irrevocably transformed. This rich earth is a canvas for a new world, but whether that world will be built on hope or renewed violence remains a terrifying, uncertain question. The rich earth of an unclaimed field still clings to your boots, a powerful, unsettling reminder of the profound changes sweeping across the land. You've walked for days, the cold winter air a constant companion, the gold in your pouch a strange, enduring weight. Now, as you approach a distant city, something new begins to pierce the pervasive quiet. Not the whispers of suspicion, nor the clash of weapons, but a rhythmic, insistent sound. It's the echo of hammers. Not distant, isolated strikes, but a chorus, a steady, determined rhythm of metal on wood, metal on stone. It cuts through the quiet, a sound of purposeful activity, a sound of building. The air here carries the fresh scent of cut timber, wet mortar, and a faint, almost hopeful tang of coal smoke, mingling with the old, familiar smell of damp stone and something indefinably old, like buried memory. As you near the city gates, you see it. The walls are still formidable, but patches are being repaired, new stones mortared into place. Workers, their faces grimed with dust and sweat, move with a focused intensity, hauling timber, chipping at stone. The gate, once a choke point of death and disease, is now a bustling entry, though the faces of those entering and leaving are still etched with a lingering weariness. You pass through the gates, and the city unfolds before you. It's not the thriving metropolis it once was, but it's far from dead. What were once silent, abandoned streets now buzz with a muted, determined activity. Scaffolding rises against the skeletal frames of half-destroyed buildings. Carpenters saw and hammer, their tools singing a song of reconstruction. Stonemasons chip away, creating new blocks to replace the old. The echo of hammers is everywhere, a persistent, almost defiant heartbeat in a city that was almost extinguished. But as you look closer, you notice the details. The houses being rebuilt are fewer, smaller, more sparsely spaced. Entire blocks lie in rubble, untouched, as if the sheer scale of loss is too vast to overcome. And in the shadows, particularly in the quieter alleyways, you still see the skeletal images, painted on walls, a chilling reminder that even in this act of rebirth, the ghosts of the dead are ever present. The vibrant colors of new construction clash with the grim, artistic depictions of death, creating a jarring, unsettling contrast. You walk through a newly repaved street, your boots thudding on the fresh stone. The smell of wet mortar is strong, an earthy, almost clean scent. But you can't help but remember the smell of sickly sugar and metallic blood that once filled these very streets. The hammering continues, a steady rhythm of progress, but it feels like a forced cheer, a desperate attempt to drown out the lingering silence, the echoes of the millions who perished here. You stand in a rebuilt square, watching a new fountain being constructed, its fresh stone gleaming in the pale winter sun. It's beautiful, a testament to human resilience. But as you watch the masons work, you see their faces, hardened, often distant. They build, but they do so with the knowledge that this ground, these very stones, hold the memory of unimaginable suffering. The real horror after the plague, you realize, isn't just the death it caused, but the profound, almost impossible task of rebuilding, of forcing life back into places haunted by so much loss. The echo of hammers is not just a sound of hope. It's a sound of defiance against a past that refuses to be forgotten, a desperate attempt to drown out the screams of the dead with the relentless rhythm of new life. This city is being rebuilt, but it will forever be haunted by its ghosts, a constant reminder of the price paid for survival. The persistent echo of hammers, the raw scent of fresh mortar, all speak of a city desperately trying to rebuild, to reassert its existence after unimaginable loss. But as you navigate these newly constructed streets, you realize the rebuilding isn't merely about restoring the old. It's about reshaping the very form of urban life, driven by a profound, pervasive fear that still grips the survivors. The air here smells cleaner, sharper, with less of the old crowded stench, a subtle but significant change. You walk down a newly laid thoroughfare, your boots thudding on the fresh stone. The striking thing about it is its width. This street is significantly wider than the winding, cramped alleys and narrow lanes that characterized medieval cities before the plague. The buildings lining it are set further back, creating more open space, more distance between each dwelling. You notice how the houses themselves are designed. Fewer overhanging upper stories, less encroachment onto the street below. There's a deliberate, almost defensive spaciousness to it all. As you pass through what used to be a dense, packed district, you see vast swaths of open ground where houses once stood shoulder to shoulder. These areas are now cleared, paved, or left as open communal spaces, dotted with freshly planted saplings. The air moves more freely here, a constant, refreshing breeze that disperses any lingering odors, any sense of confinement. You observe the people moving through these wider streets. They walk with a subtle but noticeable distance between them, a subconscious avoidance of close contact. Their gazes, while still wary, are less about suspicion of outsiders, and more about a lingering internal vigilance, a fear of what unseen threat might still lurk in proximity. The terror of contagion has literally reshaped their world, built a new architecture of avoidance. You pause by a group of masons, working on a new building. Their conversation is low, practical, but you catch a few words. Clean air, less sickness, no more breeding grounds. Their words are filled with a grim, hard-won wisdom, born from the unspeakable lessons of the plague. They're not just building homes. They're building defenses, creating spaces designed to resist the invisible enemy that almost destroyed them all. The fear of narrow streets, of crowded spaces, of the very proximity of other human beings has become an architectural principle. What was once considered efficient, communal, or simply normal is now seen as a vector for death. The old city, with its winding, shadowy lanes and close-packed dwellings, is now a ghost of a dangerous past, a blueprint for disaster. The new city breathes. It creates distance. It tries to disperse the threat that once thrived in its very closeness. You run your hand over the cool, fresh stone of a newly built wall. It feels smooth, deliberate, designed for a different kind of safety. The real horror after the plague, you realize with a chilling clarity, isn't just the death and the physical rebuilding. It's the profound, permanent alteration of human behavior, the way trauma has driven them to redefine their very living spaces, to fundamentally change how they interact with their environment and each other. This new architecture, born of contagion, is a stark, lasting monument to fear, a constant reminder that the invisible enemy has forever changed how humanity perceives community, space, and the terrifying vulnerability of being close. It's a world built not just on stone and timber, but on the enduring, shaping power of an unseen terror. The fear of narrow streets, the architectural changes born of contagion, they all speak of a profound, collective trauma. You've walked through cities desperately trying to rebuild, to create new defenses against an invisible enemy. But as you leave the relative bustle of the city and venture towards the coast, the world changes again, growing quieter, more isolated. The cold, raw air off the sea carries a new, unsettling smell, salt and damp stone, mixed with an almost clinical barrenness, a lack of the usual human sense. You approach a small port town, nestled against the gray, churning waters of the ocean. Your boots crunch on frozen shingle, and the wind whips your cloak around you. But what stops you dead in your tracks, what plunges you into a profound, suffocating silence, is the sight of the harbor. The drawbridge is raised, not lowered, not open for traffic, but pulled up, a massive wooden barrier cutting off the town from the outside world. Its heavy chains hang taut, glinting dully in the pale winter light. The gap beneath it, usually teeming with small boats, is now just a stretch of dark, unmoving water. The port, typically a hub of activity, is utterly silent. There are no merchants unloading goods, no shouts of sailors, no creaking of masts. Just the mournful cry of gulls and the ceaseless rhythmic crash of waves against the shore. You stand at the edge of the gap, a sudden, chilling emptiness washing over you. The smell of the sea is strong, clean, but it's mixed with an almost sterile absence of human life. You crane your neck, looking up at the raised drawbridge, its heavy timbers a stark, defiant wall. On the other side, the town is silent, its houses like closed eyes, its streets unnervingly still. No smoke rises from chimneys, no dogs bark, no children play. It's a profound sensory deprivation, a complete cutting off. You can almost feel the chill in the air intensify, not just from the wind but from the deliberate act of isolation. This isn't abandonment. It's a calculated, desperate measure. This is the first quarantine. The world outside is a threat, and the world within is attempting to seal itself away, to protect what little remains, even if it means sacrificing all connection, all commerce, all normal life. You call out, your voice a harsh, raw sound swallowed instantly by the vast, open space and the roar of the sea. No answer. Not even a distant echo. There are no guards on the walls, no sentries. Just the silent, raised drawbridge, an unyielding declaration of desperate, fearful self-preservation. It is a monument to a new kind of fear, a fear of human proximity itself, a fear that has severed a community from the outside world. You press your palm against the rough, cold stone of the bridge's foundation, feeling the immensity of its barrier. The real horror after the plague, you realize with a chilling clarity, isn't just the death it brought. It's the profound, desperate measures taken to avoid its return, the complete severance of human connection, the terrifying isolation of communities. Turning inward, becoming islands of fear. The raised drawbridge is not just a physical barrier, it's a psychological one, a symbol of a world so traumatized that its only defense is to cut itself off, leaving behind a silence so deep it feels like the very breath has been sucked from the world. It's a terrifying testament to humanity's enduring fear and its desperate, isolating solutions. The massive raised drawbridge, a stark symbol of desperate isolation, still cuts off the port town, its unyielding silence broken only by the mournful cries of gulls and the relentless crash of waves. You stand at the water's edge, feeling the profound, almost clinical barrenness of the air, a chilling absence of human activity. The sheer sensory deprivation is a heavy weight, pressing down on you. Suddenly, a sound rips through the stillness, raw and desperate. A human voice. A woman's voice, hoarse with fear and desperation, shouting from the top of the town wall, "Help us! For God's sake, help us!" Her words are carried on the wind, thin and fragile, swallowed by the vast expanse of sea and sky. You strain your eyes, trying to locate her. She's a tiny figure, silhouetted against the gray stone, her arms waving frantically. She calls again, a guttural sob mixed with her plea, the sound aching with unspeakable suffering. "We are dying! They are all dying! Please!" Her voice cracks, dissolving into a broken whimper. You look up, a chilling understanding dawning. The town isn't just quarantined, it's asterisk-infected. The silence you perceived wasn't simply isolation. It was the quiet of death spreading, unchecked, within those walls. The drawbridge isn't keeping the plague out, it's keeping the dying in. This isn't a defense against an external threat. It's a desperate, brutal act of containment, sacrificing a few to save the many. Another figure appears on the wall. A man, clad in rough guard's livery. He doesn't offer comfort to the woman. Instead, he grabs her roughly, pulling her away from the edge, silencing her desperate cries. He glances down at you, then at the empty expanse of water, his face a grim mask of resolve. There's no malice in his eyes, only a hard, brutal logic, born of unimaginable choices. He is simply doing what he believes must be done. The silence descends once more, heavy and absolute, punctuated only by the distant, rhythmic crash of waves against the shore, and the mournful cries of the gulls, the desperate pleas of the woman, the cold, resolute action of the guard. It all paints a horrifying picture of a society pushed to its absolute breaking point, forced to make decisions that violate every instinct of compassion. You press your hand against your mouth, a cold nausea coiling in your gut. The stench of salt and damp stone now feels infused with the phantom smell of sickness, of dying bodies, of despair. The raised drawbridge, once a symbol of isolation, now becomes a terrifying cage, a tomb for the living. The real horror after the plague, you realize with sickening clarity, isn't just the incomprehensible death toll. It's the birth of this brutal utilitarian logic, the cold, calculating choices made in the name of public health. It's the sacrifice of individuals, of entire communities, abandoned to their fate, their desperate cries silenced, all for the perceived greater good of a traumatized, fragile future. This is the dawn of public health, a terrifying, inhumane logic born from the ultimate catastrophe, where mercy is a luxury no one can afford, and individual suffering becomes a necessary, acceptable price. The desperate cries from the quarantined town, brutally silenced by the pragmatic guard, still echo in your mind, a haunting testament to the cost of survival. You've left the coastal town and its chilling logic behind, journeying inland again. The world, though scarred, still holds pockets of struggling life. The cold winter air bites, but you barely notice it now, your senses numbed by the sheer weight of what you've witnessed. You find refuge for the night in a small, abandoned shepherd's hut, its walls offering meager protection from the biting wind. The familiar smell of damp earth and stale straw fills the air. You light a small, flickering fire in the hearth, its fragile warmth doing little to dispel the profound chill that has settled deep in your bones. Exhaustion, a bone-deep weariness pulls at you, and you drift into a fitful sleep. But sleep offers no escape. You are back in the deserted village, the silence heavy and unnatural. You call out, but no sound escapes your throat. The air is thick with the sickly sweet smell of fevered breath. You see the half-eaten loaf of bread on the stall, the broken wooden doll. You try to move, to warn someone, but your feet are stuck fast to the frozen ground. The silence presses down, suffocating. Then, the whispers begin. Fragments of accusation, witch, sorcerer, poison the wells. They swirl around you, growing louder, turning into a roar. You see the hungry eyes of the wolf children, their gaunt faces contorted into snarls. The metallic clang of scythes turning into weapons, the sickening thwack of whips against flesh. Your own back begins to burn with phantom pain. The smell of burning homes and burning flesh assaults your nostrils, suffocating you. You see the raised drawbridge, the desperate, pleading face of the woman on the wall, her cries turning into a gurgle as she is pulled away. The skeletal figures dance on every surface, their empty eye sockets fixing on you, their grins mocking. You try to scream, to lash out, to run, but your limbs are heavy, useless. The horrors of your journey coalesce into a single, terrifying, inescapable nightmare. Every sight, every sound, every smell, every sensation you've experienced in this broken world returns with excruciating clarity, overwhelming your senses, trapping you in a terrifying loop. You wake with a gasp, sweat slicking your skin despite the cold. Your heart hammers against your ribs, a frantic drum in the silence of the hut. Your breath comes in ragged gasps, and you press your hands to your face, feeling the rough stubble, the grime, the tears. The fire in the hearth has dwindled to embers, casting dancing, menacing shadows on the walls. You sit there, huddled, shivering, profoundly alone. The world outside may be cold and brutal, but the world within is equally, if not more, terrifying. The real horror after the plague, you realize with a chilling clarity, isn't just the death and the chaos. It's the insidious permanent scarring of the mind, the profound trauma that lingers long after the physical threat has passed. It's living daily with the inescapable repetition of a nightmare that has no name, no resolution, no end. It's the knowledge that even in sleep, you are still traversing a broken world, haunted by the ghosts of what was lost, and forever marked by the atrocities you witnessed. The nightmare's repetition is a silent, internal plague, an eternal prison for the mind. You sit in the dim, cold shepherd's hut, the raw terror of the nightmare still clinging to you, a cold sweat on your skin. The flickering embers in the hearth do little to chase away the deep, pervasive chill or the vivid images that flash behind your eyelids. You try to calm your ragged breathing, to push away the overwhelming sensory assault of your journey, but the trauma is too deep, too pervasive. As morning breaks, painting the sky in weak pale light, you force yourself to rise. Your limbs ache, heavy with exhaustion, and a tremor runs through your hand as you reach for your cloak. It's a subtle tremor, but persistent, a physical manifestation of the mental turmoil. You leave the lonely hut and continue your journey, your senses heightened, yet oddly numb. You arrive at a small, surviving hamlet, barely a cluster of homes, where few people move about, tending to meager chores. The air here is quiet, muted, not with the eerie silence of abandonment, but with the heavy, watchful quiet of profound grief. The smell is of damp straw, faint wood smoke, and a persistent, underlying scent of fear, an almost palpable presence. You approach a woman who is stoically stirring a pot over a small fire outside her hut. Her face is gaunt, her eyes shadowed, but she moves with a steady, practiced grace. You offer a silent nod, a gesture of shared existence in this harsh world. She glances up, her eyes meeting yours, and in them, you see it. Not just weariness, not just sadness. It's a profound, unsettling hollowness. A distant, faraway look, as if her spirit has been stretched thin, almost translucent. She goes to lift a heavy bucket of water, and her hand, as it reaches for the handle, trembles. It's not a violent shake, but a soft, uncontrollable tremor, a barely perceptible flicker of weakness. She clutches the bucket, her knuckles white, her jaw tight, forcing her hand to steady. Her gaze remains distant, fixed on some unseen point beyond the horizon, as if she is constantly searching for something that will never return, or constantly replaying a moment of unspeakable loss. You watch her, and you see similar signs in others. A man, mending a fence, stops mid-swing, his hammer suspended in the air for a long moment, his eyes suddenly unfocused, staring into the distance. A young girl, carefully gathering kindling, drops a stick, then freezes, her small hand trembling as she reaches for it again, her eyes wide, haunted. These aren't just physical scars. They are invisible wounds, etched deep into the souls of the survivors. The world is not just depopulated, it is traumatized. The horror after the plague, you realize with a cold, piercing clarity, isn't just the millions who died. It's the millions who survived, carrying within them these invisible scars. It's the trembling hands, the hollow stares, the persistent nightmares, the profound, unacknowledged grief that has no name, no outlet, no end. It's the silent, internal plague that continues to consume them long after the physical sickness has passed. You walk on, your own hand now subtly trembling, your gaze perhaps holding a similar hollowness. The weight of everything you've seen, everything you've felt, presses down on you. This is the enduring legacy of the Black Death, a world populated by ghosts, not just of the dead, but of the living, their spirits shattered, forever marked by an experience so profound, so utterly devastating, that it has left them with invisible wounds that will never truly heal. This is the quiet, agonizing reality of survival, a constant battle against the internal echoes of a world lost. The invisible scars of the Black Death, the trembling hands and hollow stares of the survivors, remain etched in your memory, a profound testament to humanity's enduring trauma. You've journeyed further, the relentless winter slowly giving way to the tentative whispers of spring. The world is still broken, still haunted, but a new, subtle shift is beginning to emerge, a new kind of energy in the air. You arrive at a large town, one that, despite its scars, pulses with a different kind of life. It's not the frantic rebuilding or the wary quiet of other places. Here, the air smells distinctly of metal, oil, and fresh paper. A strange industrial scent mingled with the ever-present damp earth and wood smoke. A curious hum, a low, rhythmic thud, vibrates subtly through the ground. You follow the sound, drawn by its novelty, to a large, newly constructed building at the edge of the market square. It's not a church, nor a guild hall, but something entirely new. You push open its heavy wooden door, and the interior is filled with the rhythmic clang and groan of machinery. Your eyes scan the room, past busy men, moving heavy lead types, past others carefully inking enormous frames. The smell of oil and fresh paper is strong, almost overwhelming. And then, you see it. A massive wooden press, its heavy platen rising and falling with a powerful, deliberate motion. Beneath it, a sheet of parchment, carefully laid. The press descends with a satisfying thump asterisk, then rises again. A man, his hands stained with ink, carefully peels back the parchment. He holds it up, his face grim, but his eyes holding a strange, almost revolutionary gleam. You step closer, your boots thudding softly on the wooden floor, and peer over his shoulder. The page is covered in neat, uniform lines of text, not handwritten, not copied by a monk's painstaking quill, but reproduced with astonishing precision. It's a book. A page from a book, created by a machine. The first printed page you have ever seen. You reach out, touching the fresh ink, feeling its slightly raised texture. It's still damp, and the paper is crisp, smelling faintly of the pulp from which it was made. The power of it is immediate, staggering. Where once knowledge was painstakingly slow to produce, locked away in monastic scriptoriums, now it can be replicated, disseminated, shared with a speed unimaginable just a few years ago. The words on the page are about faith, about God's judgment, but the underlying message, the inherent process of its creation, speaks of something far more profound. This machine, this simple yet revolutionary invention, is poised to reshape the world, to break the monopoly of knowledge, to usher in an age of unprecedented information. It's a future being built, not despite the plague, but directly because of it. The real horror after the plague, you realize with a chilling surge of insight, isn't just the death and the chaos. It's the shocking, often brutal, acceleration of change, the forging of a new world atop a mountain of skulls. The immense loss of life has created a vacuum, a desperate need for new solutions, new ways of thinking, new technologies. The first printed page is a testament to this grim progress, a world being rebuilt, not on old foundations, but on the very bones of the departed. This new invention, promising enlightenment and progress, is born from the deepest trauma, a stark reminder that even the greatest innovations can rise from the ashes of unimaginable catastrophe. The rhythmic thud of the printing press, the stark reality of the first printed page, speaks of a new world, brutally forged atop the bones of the old. You stand there, a silent witness to this quiet revolution, the scent of fresh ink and paper, a vivid counterpoint to the lingering smells of decay and despair. The spring air, though still cool, now carries a faint, burgeoning scent of new growth, a poignant contrast to the trauma etched into every surviving face. You leave the press building, walking out into the town square. It's still a grim place, populated by those with hollow stares and trembling hands. But there's an undercurrent now, a subtle shift in the air, almost imperceptible but undeniably present. You see a young scholar, his face intent, sketching intricate anatomical drawings, not from ancient texts, but from direct observation, a quiet act of defiance against old dogma. Nearby, a craftsman, with a keen eye for proportion, meticulously designs a new tool, an innovative solution born from desperate necessity. The echoes of the plague, the collective trauma, they are still here. They cling to the very stones, to the haunted expressions in people's eyes. But something else is beginning to bloom in this fertile, devastated ground. The shattering of old certainties, of faith, of medicine, of social order, has opened up vast, terrifying voids. And into these voids, tentative shoots of curiosity, innovation, and human ingenuity are beginning to push their way through. You pass a group of people gathered around a traveling storyteller. His voice is rich, expressive, weaving tales not just of saints and heroes, but of ordinary people, of human suffering, of resilience. His words are not purely religious. They are grounded in the raw, lived experience of humanity, a recognition of the value of individual life and individual emotion. You see the listeners' faces, some with tears, some with quiet nods of understanding. This isn't entertainment as it once was. It's a desperate search for meaning, for shared experience, for connection in a world that has lost so much. The sun begins to set, casting long, golden shadows across the square. The sounds of rebuilding continue, a muted, determined hum. You feel the cold of the evening air, but it's tempered now by a strange, almost unsettling warmth, the warmth of burgeoning human spirit, pushing against the overwhelming darkness. The pervasive grief, the immense loss, it has acted as a grim catalyst. The real horror after the plague, you realize with a profound sense of awe and dread, isn't just the millions who died. It's the agonizing, often brutal process of what came next. It's how the sheer scale of the catastrophe, the utter failure of old systems and beliefs, became the fertile soil for something entirely new. The seeds of the Renaissance, of a new age of humanism, of scientific inquiry, of artistic expression, were not planted in joy or peace. They were watered with the tears of the bereaved, nurtured by the desperation of survivors, and forced to grow in the shadow of unimaginable death. You stand there, a solitary figure, feeling the weight of this forgotten horror, this terrible, beautiful truth. The plague didn't just end. It transformed everything, accelerating humanity into a future it wasn't ready for, building an entirely new world on the uncounted bones of the past. The greatest flowering of human intellect and art, the very dawn of a modern age, emerged not despite the devastation but because of it, a stark, profound testament to the ultimate, terrifying cost of progress. It is a legacy that forever intertwines suffering with creation, a truly horrifying, yet awe-inspiring chapter in the human story.